Coming up on Effing Up the Ineffable.
My walk-in closet, and that's what I was doing. And I woke up like in the middle of my closet in the dark, trying to get through stuff, and it just so those couple of times, and there were a couple other smaller incidents here or there, but yeah, those two really stuck with me, and I was like, okay, I sleepwalk, and even here I am as a teenager, I sleepwalk.
So
right?
this just occurred to me as you was talking about it this time. Was it terrifying to you that you sleepwalked? Because I think to me, I would that would really it would be like a loss of control kind of freak out, because like not now, but like because now I'm like I don't believe in free will, but back then I did. I'm just being very very direct. Like back then I did, and that's why like I watched possession movies, and it scared me more than anything else, because this idea that something could take control of your body and you could do horrible things and not even know it. You know what I'm saying? It worried me so. Like there's been cases where people have apparently killed people while under the influence of while sleepwalking.
I even saw a case where somebody got acquitted. Because of that. Yeah,
and it scared me so much, because it's like, oh my God, what if I woke up in the middle of the night and killed everybody I loved, and then didn't know it or something like that? That would really scare me. Did that terrify you?
Well, I hadn't really thought about that now, so thanks a lot.
My gift to you, Michael.
No, I mean at the time, no, but I had things that happened later that I'll talk about in a minute that have really.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brian.
And I'm Mike. We're experts in some things, such as IT, which we'll probably never discuss.
We're published authors with over 20 books.
Wait, we are? Which ones did I write?
We're musicians who played on albums and TV.
And developers who have written software used by literally millions of people.
Wait, really? I have?
Over the years, we have had in-depth conversations about everything from theoretical physics
to the nature of consciousness,
to why Marvel is way better than DC.
Is it though?
And we thought maybe you'd like to listen in. Trust us, we're really interesting people. And smart.
And don't forget good looking.
And we're effing up the ineffable. To sleep, perchance to dream.
Yes. Okay. Well, we're rolling. And action.
Sorry, I was trying to give it some space so it'd be easy to cut.
Cut. And action.
Hey, welcome to our 10th episode of Effing Up the Ineffable. We've actually done 10 of these now, or this will be the 10th. Or, I guess maybe we've done more or less depending on what order we release all these, but we know that this is the 10th episode. It's very meta. Like we can see the future and see that this is the 10th episode.
unless we lose it again, and then it won't be the 10th episode.
Yeah, exactly. So just a little bit of behind the scenes.
If you don't hear this, it's not the 10th episode.
A little bit of the behind the scenes is that we had some technical difficulties and lost 2.5 of our episodes. And it was a half because we were in the middle of recording an episode on sleep, which we're going to tackle today, when we started having these technical difficulties, and it's caused a lot of pain, I think, for Brian over the time, but he has tackled it. He's went out and spent the money on new hardware to make this work well. So, thank you, Brian, for enabling us. But hey, I don't know what your expectations were when we started recording last year, but I think it's pretty cool that we've actually released. This will be our 10th episode now, and we've got, more planned to come. And, we have a lot that we're going to be tackling here in the near future. And it's pretty cool. And I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. It's a different format, than we normally talk in. But I think we've managed to be very transparent without, impacting people in our lives too much.
Right.
Over the internet. But, yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting platform to get our thoughts out, even if only 7 people listen to them. But it's been fun to talk about it and just share it with everybody. I mean, like I said, one of the impetuses for doing this was to tackle, I thought, subjects that require a little more thought than people tend to put into them, and kind of do it in an irreverent but still critical kind of way,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we want to have fun. We don't want to take ourselves too seriously. I think one of the things that bugs me about some people that when you meet people is that they take themselves and their own thoughts so seriously that they're not open to any kind of critical thinking, right? It's, and I think that's what we're all about, is just trying to look at things from a lot of different angles and trying to understand them in as unbiased a way as we possibly can. We can't do it 100% unbiased, but just to, and then to kind of almost pick fun at it a little bit and make fun of ourselves a little bit along the way. And just to be clear, I have kept a little bit of track on all of our listens or views across the Podbean network of podcast stuff. So like, Apple Music and Spotify and all that, and also on YouTube and YouTube Shorts. And if you add all of our listens or views together, it's over like 1,200 now. So, I mean, that's not bad.
No, yeah. I mean, I joke about this because it's like, how do I put this? Honestly, social media to me today, and this is kind of this is a tangent way off of this episode, but social media today is like it's actually disgusts me to some. I feel this kind of twinge of disgust for about half the shit I see on social media, because it's also we're so capitalistic and so targeted on trying to game the algorithm and push the numbers up and make big number get bigger and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, from my perspective, the only reason I want more people to hear this is so that more people can hear it. You know what I'm saying? So that if we're, I believe we're talking about things that are useful, can be useful to people's lives and can help improve their lives. And I want them to think about them. I would like to have more people I can discuss this kind of stuff with, more than just on a superficial level. And, I don't think enough people are talking about a lot of these subjects, or are not talking about them from the right direction. And I would like more people to do that. I don't really care about anything else, so it's kind of tongue in cheek to me saying, 7 people listen to this. I don't see any huge impact in society, and I'm not willing to change the format any to do that. But I sure would like it if more people, talked about these kinds of subjects and really delved into them in an honest kind of way, and not in a clickbaity,
right.
How can we exploit the algorithm to make the maximum number of viewers, click onto this fucking thing,
Yeah. So you're saying we should not title this episode something like, "Hey, you could become a millionaire with this one weird trick," or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, this is as cynical as it gets, but this is true. I think we could probably title this episode something like, the Ubermensch or Superman sleep schedule, and how you can use it to improve performance, and the one trick that all the world leaders use to, that kind of shit, and probably get a hell of a lot of views, despite the fact that would be completely irresponsible, because if hopefully we'll get into this, but I've done that, and I'll tell you, it's a horrible fucking thing to do. Do not do that to yourself,
Right. And you're right. I mean, so much of it is clickbaity, and I've seen so many things on YouTube, like you're talking about, where like you can have a short, and you'll see, in your front page or whatever on YouTube, all the things that it's recommending to you from the algorithm or whatever. And there are so many shorts that'll get recommended. And I see a lot that are, like, for me, I see a lot that's D&D related or like fitness related or various other things. But however it's derived, whether this is from the people who are producing the content, or whether it's some YouTube algorithm or AI or whatever it is, the screenshot or the screen cap that is shown as like for the short almost invariably will be tailored to something sexual. Like, it can be absolutely not, like, the video itself may not be sexual whatsoever, but they will pick a place where, you know, it shows the most cleavage on this particular woman that's doing fitness stuff.
Yep.
Or it'll be like the, you know, when the captioning that's on there, like it'll be something that sounds provocative out of context when it's really not, or things like that. And it's ridiculous. Like I see those things and it's become so overt to me. Like it's literally like 3/4 of the shorts that I see on YouTube are like that. And it's just like, it's really taking it down to the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, I agree. I honestly, we could probably do a whole episode on that too. Like I think there's things, like I was talking to my wife about this, you know, there was, she sent me, for example, she sends me these videos a lot with, or she used to until I talked to her about this, but she sends me these videos a lot with somebody who's, there's a video playing and then there's like an inset picture of a face where they're like laughing at it or nodding or shaking their head or what, you know, expressing their pleasure or displeasure at this video as if it's the first time they've ever seen it, right? Mm-hmm. You know damn well it's not the first time they've ever seen it. They did this shit specifically. I mean, it's so cynical because there's two pieces to this. One, they don't have to do hardly any fucking thing, right? They just have to act a little bit, right?
Right.
Two, they get to express their opinion without actually saying anything, right? And three, they're actually not really there's no effort in this. This is so fucking low effort. They are just reposting somebody else's shit without giving them any credit whatsoever with their fucking face on it so they can make their numbers get bigger. And I'm just like, this is the most cynical horse shit I have ever seen in my life. And the moment I see somebody doing that, I instantly mute their ass. Like dude, my entire social media process now is just blocking motherfuckers. Like, you post something you didn't research, blocked. You post some AI shit, blocked. You post some shit that's low effort, blocked. You know, like, I'm curating my feed is about all I do on fucking social media now.
There's this channel that I think you should check out. You may have seen it before, but I think it's called Minuteman. But it's this guy who he's probably millennial aged, and he's a very irreverent kind of guy that is just, he's actually super smart, and he just goes through all of these like conspiracy theory videos and stuff that gets posted, and will just slam the people for all the stuff that they're doing wrong and all the leaps that they're jumping to, or the conclusions that they're jumping to, the leaps they're making, all that stuff. And it's really funny because he just calls it as it is, you know. It reminds me a lot of you, actually. But it's just there's a lot of it, and, you know, and it's funny because he's actually went and talked at universities, and he'll go and talk to a class, and it'll be like one of his YouTube videos where he'll go through that stuff like in front of like a class of 200 people, like in an anthropology, you know, class or something like that, and just go through it, and it's hilarious. I mean, he's a comedian basically, but he's really a scientist. You know what I mean? It's really good though. So
Minuteman?
I think it's Minuteman. I can't remember if there's another word on there or not, but I will. I'll put a link to it in here and share it.
So I think probably we ought to get on to the actual subject.
Well,
now.
yeah. So we're talking about sleep today, right? Yep. And yeah, so we'll probably put a title on this video, something about our 10th episode, blah 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 blah. I don't know. You'll
10th episode. We're gonna put you to sleep,
and then we'll talk about sleep, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, sleep's a weird thing, right? You know, we think about it as we literally spend, the average person, a third of your life asleep, and it's probably one of the most important things that we do as humans, regardless of whether we remember it or not. And that's probably weird because to a lot of people that think about that, like, you don't remember anything that you're doing typically when you're sleeping, but yet you spend a third of your life doing it. And it's one of the most important things you do. So it's kind of weird in that way, but there's a lot to talk about there. You know, you and I have got a lot of different kind of experiences with sleep, sleep disorders. Like you talked about things that you've tried to hack sleep certain ways, things like that. I think there's a lot that we can get into.
Yeah. Totally. I think one of the things I'd like to talk about that it just occurred to me now, because I don't think we talked about this last time, but when you mentioned, sleep, you spend a third of your life in it and you don't remember it. It's like the only part of your life that you really have no knowledge of for the most part. That's an interesting philosophical point, because like we're all afraid of death largely because we cease to exist, and we don't know what happens, right? But every night basically the same thing happens, right? You more or less cease to exist, right? And then every morning you wake up, and if you really think about it, you have absolutely there's no way to tell whether if I go to sleep tonight I die, and tomorrow morning, a brand new consciousness is born with all of my memories. Like, there's absolutely no way to tell the difference between those two states. So it could be that every night when you go to sleep, you actually die. Your consciousness actually dies, and a brand new one is born every day. And if you think about that long enough, you either make some really interesting psychological conclusions or you go a little crazy.
Yeah. Well, or there's always, I think it's become a little bit of a trope in some things, but the idea of maybe the time that we think we're awake is really the time that we're sleeping, and that we don't remember what happens while we're awake, but the awake version of us doesn't remember these dreams either. And there's all that stuff. Yeah.
I think though, like, because we have some of a window into dreams, I think I can not disprove it, but I think I can push back on that pretty strongly, very easily, just by saying we appear to be pretty poorly suited to the dream world evolutionarily. Like, when we're in the dream world, nothing seems to make any fucking sense, right?
Yeah.
And things don't go the way you think they're going to, which means that our predictive powers aren't very good in the dream world, even though we're generating it all ourselves, which is kind of weird. But so looking at it from that perspective, it seems to me like, as an organism, we're clearly evolved for the waking world, not the dream world.
Yeah.
Which means probably the waking world is the real world.
Well, and I called it a trope, and I'm not exactly sure whether it's something that has been posited in a lot of TV or movies or whatever, maybe, but I think it's one of those things that people like to throw out there as kind of this throwaway philosophical statement that they really haven't put any thought into.
Sure.
And that's really what I meant there. But I guess let's just start with, your typical person needs a certain amount of sleep. The general scientific studies have said that, essentially the younger you are, the more sleep you need. Children need like up to, depending on their ages, up to like 12 hours of sleep a night. Teenagers typically need something like up to 10 hours of sleep a night. And
which
then
they almost never get.
Well, right. Yeah. In fact, that they don't. That's true. Yeah. And then most adults need like somewhere between 7 and 9 hours of sleep. And then like the older you get, the less sleep you need. Right. So most people don't get that. Most, especially in America, most people are chronically sleep deprived, because I think we tend to see sleep as being this useless time, right? It's like we can't, like, we don't remember it, like we just said, right? It's not something that we see as being particularly useful. We like to, do whatever we've got to do to recharge our batteries, but do it as quickly as we can.
We're so like our America in particular is so incredibly hyper capitalistic and materialistic that we have basically we try to make everything productive and efficient, essentially, and kind of sleep is that way.
I'm not even sure if I would say. I mean, some people certainly. But
I certainly did. That's why I did my
right,
sleep
and that's I was trying to lead you to that, because I want you to talk about that. But I was gonna say, I think for some people it's just, they want more time to be entertained too. It's like, it's boring laying there trying to go to sleep when you could be watching a movie or playing a game or reading a book or, watching videos on YouTube.
But I guess that it's still kind of the same thing. Like if you had a 4-hour work day, you wouldn't have that problem, right? But you don't. you have an 8-hour workday that often morphs into a 12-hour workday because you got commute and you got all kind of other bullshit that comes up, and maybe you can't have to work through lunch, and maybe you have to work after hours or on the weekend. So I'm just saying it seems to me like if America has the problem more than the rest of the world, there's probably a pretty obvious explanation for that. It seems to me.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I don't have any data around like by country, but I do know that there are many cultures where things like an afternoon nap, a siesta, are very common and encouraged.
Yep.
And obviously that's not the case in the U.S.
Yeah, and I mean, I work with a lot of people in Europe as well, and they just have a really different philosophy on working hours. I mean, it's a lot of Americans kind of look down on them for it, but really, like, I think what it is just a common thing. I think what it is that they're not looking deep enough into why they're annoyed by it to figure out that they're annoyed by it because they're jealous of it. Like,
I'll give you an example for that. And this has nothing to do with sleep, so we're going off on a tangent again. But I remember being on I used to have to be on late night calls where we would be installing code into production for our customers to use. And it would take a while because you've got a lot of instances. You have to validate it all, make sure it all works. And if there's problems of any kind, you have to figure them out and fix them. And, like if everything went perfect, it might take 2 or 3 hours. If it didn't, it could take up to like 12 hours to, and you'd be up all night long.
Right.
And we would have people that were both in the U.S. and in India that would be all on the same call together doing these things, going through all the steps, et cetera. And there was one particular night where we had a problem with the deploy tool that we were using, and it wasn't following all the steps in the script the way that it was supposed to. It just was, and we had to get somebody from that team to go fix that particular tool for the deployment to work. And they happened to be in India, and they got on the phone with us, and we started walking through it. And while we were in the middle of troubleshooting the problem, we had made progress, but he had not finished everything he needed to do so that we could continue the deployment. He said, "I've got to go take my lunch break now. I'll be back in 45 minutes." And literally, we've got a bunch of people that are on the phone in the U.S. in the middle of the night. It's like, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., something like that.
Like, we're not waiting 45 minutes.
Right, exactly. and a lot of people were really upset. And I'm like, it's the middle of the day for him. And like, he's in, like, how many of us at work eat our lunch at our desk while we're working, or just to your point or whatever. Right. And we're expecting that out of other people. But, the idea behind a 40-hour work week is typically you're working 8 hours a day. And for those people that are in the office from, say, 8 to 5, well, that's an hour lunch break baked in there. But like, I don't know anybody really that does that. I do see people that'll go and sit, in my workplace, go sit in a cafeteria or whatever. But the number of people that you see that have a laptop in front of them, even when they're sitting there or whatever, is probably far greater than the number that don't.
Yep.
And occasionally, and I'm starting to see more of it again after everybody's kind of returned to office after COVID and all that you start to see more of the people are in the office together and they're socializing, during lunch or something like that, a little bit more. But still, I would say the vast majority of people that are eating lunch at work are eating at their desk while they're working.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I do the same thing most of the time too. It's not like I'm working most of the time while I'm doing it, but I'm there. So if something comes up, I can, I'll take it. But no, so back to sleep. So the Uberman sleep schedule. Let me kind of go into this. So I'll just kind of explain what it is, and then I'll explain where I got it from, and a little bit about how stupid I was when I was younger, and may still be. Anyway, so
you're stupid in new and better ways.
Yeah, I'm more complicatedly stupid now. Anyway, so. The Uberman sleep schedule is basically, the idea is you basically take a 15-minute nap once every 4 hours. So that's basically it. So you're sleeping like an hour and 45 minutes a day or something.
Right. I was going to say, to be clear, that's in place of any sleep that you would do overnight.
Right. You
so
do not,
it's literally
you do not
all
do,
24 hours. You're taking
Correct.
15-minute naps every 4 hours.
Correct. So yeah, you end up being awake like I said, like 22 and a quarter hours or something out of the day. It does work. Okay, and by work, let me explain what I mean by that. Most people think this would just be torture all day. It's not. You actually don't feel sleepy most of the day. What happens is getting used to it is a bitch. Getting it started is a bitch, right? Because basically you wake up one morning and then you decide, okay, 4 hours from now I'm going to take a nap. You're not going to be able to sleep. You're going to be like, whatever. Yeah. 4 hours after that, try to take a nap. Maybe you'll be able to sleep then. But you take a 15-minute nap, you set an alarm for 15 minutes, and you start the alarm and you lay down. So you're not actually getting 15 minutes of sleep. You're getting some amount of sleep, but it's not 15 minutes.
Yeah.
When the alarm goes off, you get the fuck up. It doesn't matter how you feel. It doesn't matter what's going on. You get out of bed. Because that is the only way this works. If you slap a snooze button, it's over. Like the first time you sleep over half an hour, you are going to feel like somebody kicked you in the face. Like,
well, and I imagine you were saying, when you lay down, you start the alarm. I would, especially like on the first few days, I would like for me, I don't think I'd be able to go to sleep in 15 minutes.
You can't.
So I would imagine you almost need that.
So on average, it takes about 7 minutes for people to fall asleep. On average, okay.
Well, right, but I guess what I'm saying is, like last night, I slept. Okay, so if I decided today I was going to do this. Like I couldn't,
No. 4 hours after you wake up, there's almost no chance you can do that.
Right.
8 hours, maybe. Maybe you get a little bit of shut eye, right? 12 hours, maybe. 16 hours, probably. Okay. And it starts getting hard at about the 16-hour mark, right? And so that's when you have to be very diligent about when the alarm goes off, you get up. I put luckily I'd done this before, but I put my alarm across the room again when I started this, right? So I had to get up and walk over to it. And then I had to remind myself, because you hit that button and you think, oh, I can go lay back down again. And I'd remind myself, no, I cannot, and I had to do that. I had to have the discipline to do that, but I did. Okay. And what I can tell you is that after about a day or two of this, you start getting used to it. And by start getting used to it, what I mean is some weird shit starts to happen. First of all, you wake up, you'll feel pretty bad, but within about 15 minutes, you'll feel fine. I'm not going to say I didn't take any caffeine while I was doing this, but I drank Cokes. Like I didn't drink coffee because I wasn't a coffee drinker at the time. So I drank Cokes and tea.
Well, at least for me too, I think if I was taking much caffeine in, like trying to go back to sleep that 4 hours later would be really difficult for me.
It did not matter. Like you get so sleepy, it makes no fucking difference. Okay. Like I got to the point to where almost the moment my head hit the pillow, I was out. I went to sleep so fast, I don't even remember going to sleep. And I would dream. And you're not supposed to be able to hit REM sleep that early, okay? But I would dream almost every time I went to sleep. So I did this twice. I've done it twice. I did it both for about a month and a half, 2 months, something like that at a time. The first time I was probably 19 years old, something like that, maybe 20. It was before I wrote my book, and I wrote my book at 21. So I wrote the first book at 21. So it was somewhere before that, when we were at Computer Source 1.
Right. I was going to say, so that was 97, 98 is when we were there. So however old you would have been there.
No, man.
Well, it was Computer Source. So Brian and I ran a small.
So I graduated
together.
I would have been at 95. I would have been 19. 96. I would have been 20. 97. I would have been 21. And so I guess it might have been the end of that, right?
Okay.
Right. So I might have been because I know I wrote the book when I was 21 because it was copyrighted then. But anyway, so that was the first time I tried it, and I stopped it. It wasn't because I felt bad. I was going to do this the rest of my life. Actually, I stopped it because.
Well, you got sick. I thought.
Yeah, I got so incredibly sick. Like not like. It was like cold style sick, but it was bad. Like it took me out really hard, and so I had to to sleep, to recover from that, right?
Right.
And then once I got done, I was like, well, shit, I'm not going back and doing that again. That might
Yeah.
have caused it, right?
Well, and I think part of the reason that you were able to start that, I know probably one of the things that most people think about when they think about this napping every 4 hours is, there are things like being at work
Right.
that, how do you do that? How do you work that into your day? Because most places you're not going to have the ability. You're going into office. You're not going to be able to go and nap a couple of times during that day. But we ran our own business at that point. And I remember you made a pallet back in a back room and went and laid down on it for those 15 minutes, and that was fine. We made the rules then, we could do that, but not a lot of people could do that.
Yeah, I mean, these days you could do it like by taking your normal break, because you're supposed to. I mean, OSHA doesn't matter anymore, but you're supposed to have a break every 4 hours.
That's
so
true,
you could do it on your 15-minute break every 4 hours.
And go just like sleep in your car or something.
Yeah, you could do that. Either time I did that, I didn't do that. I had a special arrangement set up. So the second time I did it was actually only a couple of years later. I was working for this startup called Tech Train here in Charlotte, and they had me wearing about 17 hats, and I just had too much shit to do. I had I was teaching a class during the day, a class at nights on weekends, and I had a new subject I had to learn, actually several new subjects I had to learn so I could teach in the future, and I had no time to do that, right? So basically, that's what I did. I told them, look, this is what I'm going to do, and that's what I did. And they were fine with it, and get more work out of this guy for no more money. It's great, so they were happy with it. And so I did it for about a month and a half, 2 months, and then just the bottom fell out, man. It's the amazing thing about it is how quickly the sickness came on, because it was like I felt fine one day, and the next day it was like somebody had mule kicked me in the face. Like it.
So one of the things that I hear a lot is how sleep helps our bodies heal. It helps support our immune system and things like that. So do you feel like your immune system was suppressed somewhat by your sleep schedule, and that's why you got so sick both times?
Yeah, and I think, I have a problem just kind of endemic to who I am. If something's chronic, I eventually get to where I just don't notice it anymore, kind of, and so I've had a lot of things happen to me throughout my life where it's been like, oh, that doesn't bother you? And I'm like, no, it's like, this is just how it is, like just because I don't worry about it. And so it just doesn't bother me. And I suspect that I had a lot of little bitty warning signs that were popping up, and I was just like, yeah, whatever, and go on my day,
and I actually think that I do the same thing sometimes. A few years ago, it was during COVID. I had a filling that I had in one of my teeth that fell out and left this big hole in my tooth, right? And I didn't really want to go to the dentist because this was like, it was like May of 2020,
Oh, yeah.
and you didn't even want to leave the house hardly, a lot of people. And I didn't want to go have somebody rooting around in my mouth, and all of that. So I was like, I'll deal with it for now. And when this stuff blows over, I'll eventually go to the dentist. Well, it lasted a while, right? And I didn't go to the dentist for probably 2 years. And then I did, and eventually ended up, having to have a root canal on that tooth, and, and they put a cap on it and all that kind of stuff. But here was the thing. During that 2 years, I had this big old hole in my tooth, and I couldn't eat anything on that side of my mouth or drink anything that was cold or hot or whatever, because it was tremendously sensitive and it would just be really painful. So I learned to just eat and drink on the right side of my mouth. And did that for 2 years. And then when I finally was able to like chew on both sides of my mouth again, I was like, how did I do this for 2 years?
Right.
Because it hurts. So I know what you're talking about. It's very, sometimes you're just like, doing something about it is more difficult than just dealing with it. So like you develop these defenses where you just deal with it and you almost forget about it.
And so I think that was, and to be completely transparent, I have an enormous number of sleep problems now. So I don't know how many of those are related to that. Maybe not at all, but maybe, right? So
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
Yeah,
right?
I didn't, to my knowledge, have any of these problems at the time, and now I've got sleep apnea and I've got narcolepsy, right? So it's
And necrophilia.
no, not necrophilia, Michael, not necrophilia.
To explain that, Brian and I were having a conversation a few days ago, and I could not think of the word narcolepsy to save my life, and I was going to ask him something about it, and necrophilia came out as the...
I'm like, why would you think I know anything about necrophilia? I mean, I do, but why would you think? Anyway, but yeah, so I don't know how much of these various disorders were caused by that, but I suspect it didn't help. And knowing what I know about narcolepsy now makes me really want to throw out a huge warning above and beyond the one I just gave for people who think about this, is that there's a disease, and I cannot remember the name of this. Every time I talk about this, I forget the name of this stupid disease. But there's a disease, you can look it up, where or a syndrome where once you get it, you cannot sleep anymore. The eventual stage of this syndrome is you literally cannot sleep. Nothing can put you to sleep. Your brain never rests. Once people have reached the end stage of this disease, the longest they've ever lived is 2 years. Because it causes brain necrosis. It literally kills your brain cells.
Yeah.
Okay. So not doing this Uberman sleep schedule, if you could do it for a long time, you're probably putting yourself on a 2-year timer before you're brain dead. Okay. Mm-hmm. So who knows how many brain cells I killed in 3 months of doing this shit. I mean, I could probably do the math. It's probably a fair number, that I probably did a fair amount of damage to my own brain.
Well, and it's been proven through many studies that lack of sleep or having sleep debt reduces your ability to think clearly and to reason and things like that, and that it's cumulative. Yep. So the more you go along time, I heard, and this is a very simplistic view of it, and depending on how you feel about IQ and things like that, you may not, it is what it is, but they were giving an IQ test to various subjects that had different amounts of sleep debt. And what they found, and this is rounded off, but it's rounded to make it easy to digest. But essentially, for every hour of sleep debt that you have beyond 7 hours, or short of 7 hours, I should say. So 6 hours would be 1 hour of sleep debt. That you lose roughly 1 point of IQ on those tests. And that it's cumulative. So like if you went 7 straight days of only getting 6 hours of sleep, then you would be 7 points lower than you would. Now, obviously it's not going to go into negatives. So some people live in perpetual sleep debt. There are people that are out there that only sleep 5 or 6 hours a night every single night.
Yeah, but that,
obviously it's not going to go.
I'm going to push back against that a little bit because nobody does that. Like you might sleep 5 or 6 hours a night, but if there's going to be a holiday or a weekend, or you're going to get drunk or something, and you're going to end up sleeping like 16 or 18 hours at a time. Like I've done this.
Well, that's true.
Many
true.
times.
And the other thing that the study found was that you can recover much faster than you accumulate the debt. So, I don't remember what the ratio was, but it was like for every hour over 7 that you slept, or even sleeping 7 hours after having accumulated the debt can regain like half of that within one night or something.
I'm just very quickly doing a very quick number here. That's 6 points a night. Okay, I was losing.
Yes,
right. So if you do 2 weeks of that, basically you're brain dead, right? Right. So yeah. I wasn't brain dead. I was still capable of operating at a pretty high level.
I don't think they probably weren't testing anybody that was at that.
Right. Nobody was trying to push the boundary. This is just a rule of thumb. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But it is true that you harm your thinking capacity, your reasoning capacity, by not getting enough sleep. And regardless of what the numbers are, how you measure them, I think that is an objective statement that occurs, and that a lot of people, I would say a majority of people, at least in the U.S., routinely carry sleep debt.
Yep. even kids, and that's the horrible part. Like, it drives me nuts every time I see one of my nieces with like bags under their eyes or whatever. I'm like, God, you could just sleep, girl. Like, I know it's boring. Do it anyway, But anyway, so yeah, the Uberman sleep schedule. I'll tell you where I got it from. And this is not very flattering. So I was reading some kind of back in the day, various magazines, tabloids and things like that would have all these things in the back where they would trying to say all these stupid things. My grandparents always got like Star and the National Enquirer and all that shit. So all that shit was always in the house, and so I used to read it, right? And I remember at some point as a kid reading an advertisement for a book saying, this sleep schedule that the all world leaders use in times of crisis and special forces operators use and all this kind of stuff. And there's some truth to that. I mean, people who've been deployed in the military will tell you that in the Army anyway, you can learn to sleep anywhere at any time on command because you're just, you just learn how to do it. You've had to learn how to do that.
And you have to take the opportunities when you have them because you don't know when you'll be able to sleep.
And you might be running on 3 days with no sleep. Yeah. There's people that do that. So this is a real and an effective technique under very short-term conditions, right? And under extreme duress, right? It's not something to be used on a night-to-night basis, right? But of course, the ad for the book didn't say that. And I, of course, didn't read the book. I read the ad, right? So I read this at some point as a child, and then many years later decided, hey, I need to do something like this. Let me just try it, right? And a lot of things in my life are kind of like that. Like I like to have this thought of myself that I research things, and I do research things pretty well usually, right? But I also have this part of me that's just like, fuck it, and I just do things, right? Yeah. And sometimes that works out pretty good, and often it really doesn't, So this is one of those cases where it kind of looked like it was going to be one of those and turned out to be the other.
Right. I do the same thing. Don't think I've ever done it with sleep, but yeah, I mean, it's easy. Like we'll get things lodged in our heads from when we were kids, and it's almost, probably somewhere in your mind, you were like, when you saw this as a kid, you would be like, oh, I'd probably like to try this now, but there'd be barriers to that. Your parents or grandparents wouldn't let you do it, or you can't sleep at school, or all those types of things, right?
Oh, I could sleep at school. Get a lot of that.
But then you get to be an adult, and you're like, I make the rules now. I can do whatever I want, and I've been wanting to try this.
You had to boss of me. Yeah. So. It was a pretty bad idea. I would say if you're in a war zone or something, it's a very, very helpful technique. But
but you were not in a war zone. No, you were not.
I was trying to make the money.
Dealing with the Cuban Missile Crisis. Yeah. But you were. I mean, you did it for a reason. And if I remember correctly, and feel free to elaborate, but you just had a lot of things that you were wanting to do and didn't feel like you had enough time to do them all, and you felt like you could maximize the amount of time you had to do things.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at this because this is so funny. Earlier, I'm arguing. I'm actually going to make both of our points from earlier because I was arguing with you about this. You made that, I said, we're in this capitalistic society and they won't let us sleep and all this shit. And you were like, nah, man, people just want to fucking goof off and play video games, right? And now I'm remembering why I did this. Here's literally what it was. We were working a startup.
Yeah.
So I'm wearing like several hats already, right? And then I had to write our business plan, which was much larger than it needed to be. So I was doing that, right? And I realized, okay, I don't have any time at work and I don't have any time at home. Like I'm doing all this shit all the time. I don't have any time to play my video games. I won't play my goddamn video games. So literally that's what I did all night was play video games. Like I would get up and play video games all night. That was the impetus. Yeah. And so it was like I went to work. I did all the shit I'm supposed to do at work. I wrote my business plan, and then during the night when everybody was sleeping, I did video games.
To your point, if you had only had to work 4 hours a day, you could have done.
So I'm proving both of our points of this shit. Is what I'm saying. Yeah. So yeah. So that was not a very good decision on my part. But it is is neither the most common or worst bad decision I've ever made.
So I've had a lot of strange things with sleep. You mentioned that you've got some sleep disorders, and I want to let you talk about those because I think they're serious, and you've had to deal with a lot, and I think you've learned a lot about yourself, but about sleep in general and how it affects you or doesn't affect you, et cetera. And I want to get into that. But I wouldn't say I have a sleep disorder unless you consider sleepwalking and sleep talking a disorder.
I do, yeah. I do think it's definitely a disorder.
But that's something that I've dealt with for a long time, and it's turned into some really interesting anecdotes, and I'll get into that at some point. But when I started dealing with that, I started really kind of researching sleep as well, and looking at some of the things. Like, I wanted to understand what caused what was happening with me, but I also just wanted to figure out how to make it stop is really what it was. but I also just I started really paying attention to what helped me sleep better, what caused me to be awake a lot at night, what was going on in my life or just before I went to bed, before I would have these sleepwalking, sleep talking kind of episodes, things like that. And one of the things that I noticed for me was that, and this was something that, like, it was revolutionary to me at the time, because I kind of like what you were talking about, where you can just lay down and go to sleep within 7 minutes or whatever. Right. And I had somebody else tell me, and it wasn't 7 minutes, but it was something as simple as, if you just lay down, close your eyes in a dark room and be still for 20 minutes and just commit to doing that for 20 minutes, 99% of the time you'll fall asleep.
Yep.
And all that's great. But I joke about overthinking things a lot, but literally my brain churns on stuff nonstop.
Sure.
And I have to figure out how to help myself relax to go into that space. And when you were describing the 15 minutes and you set the alarm and then you lay down, I cannot imagine a scenario. And yes, I understand where you're talking about. You just get so tired over time that you can't help it. But
it's kind of a self-solving problem.
Yeah, and I guess so. But like every night when I go to bed, like I have to do something to distract my brain. I read every single night before I go to bed. And it has to be something that's, it has to be like fiction most of the time, because I can't read something that I want to process and put into action. Like when my band was recording and I was reading all of these articles and magazines and stuff about like different recording tools and engineering and mixing and mastering and all that kind of stuff, like it would literally keep me up all night, because I would read those things and I'd be thinking about how I'm going to use them. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't even do that. I had to I've turned into like epic fantasy is my thing, that not all the time, but mostly fiction that I'll read at night. Or if it is something that is nonfiction, honestly, I tend to try to find things that are a little bit dry, just because I'll fall asleep reading.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Like I would, if I had that problem, I would probably read Interview with a Vampire every night. It has never failed to put me to sleep. I don't think I've ever made it 50 pages in that book,
but I will say, even if the book is good, sometimes it's like I can't fall asleep because I'm into the book too much. Yeah. So like it's a good thing that it's a good book and I'm really interested in reading it, but then it keeps me from going to sleep at night.
Yeah, I will give you a couple of suggestions here, because I've had this problem before too. I don't have it anymore because unluckily really, but kind of luckily, the medicine I take for narcolepsy, there's not, well, it's very hard to get me in a state to where that occurs. Mm-hmm. But back before I was diagnosed with narcolepsy, I used to have this problem a lot. And the thing that helped me a lot was I would pick something that, and this still works today. Sometimes I fall asleep before my medicine even kicks in. I would think about something that was very tedious, mm-hmm. but needed to be done, and how to do it. Okay. So for me, my go-to is almost always writing, because I've got I know which chapter I'm writing next. I've got it all plotted out, so I know even if I don't have it all plotted out, I know what's supposed to happen. I know what the goal of the chapter is, right? Yeah. Well, there's all kind of little like writing is problem solving. There's all kind of little problems in getting to that goal, right? Sometimes there's a part that's not going to be interesting that you've got to go through, and you got to figure out a way to make that part interesting. Sometimes you don't know how you're going to enter the scene. Sometimes you don't know how you're going to exit the scene. There's all kind of little problems, right? Yep. I just think through it from the start to the finish. Just like in prose, I'm literally trying to think about how am I going to write this. I'm writing it in my head, right? Mm-hmm. And doing that is not fun. Like that's the not fun part of. Well, I mean, it's interesting, but it's not. It doesn't. I don't get a burst of like excitement over doing that. Yep. It's just work, right? And it's work that has to be done. So just what I find is that if I do that, it kind of lulls me into this place of just, I don't know. It's just like logic. And it's just really easy for me to kind of drift off. Like mid-thinking.
Now, see, the funny thing is that is exactly that sort of thing that would keep me awake. Because just like I was talking about, I'd be reading some article about, I'll just make something up here because I don't remember the specific articles, but it's talking about, using specific techniques to mix, let's say, guitar and vocals together, and like my brain would become engaged on this. Not just that's an interesting concept, but like to the step of, well, here's the things that I need to do within my mix in order to make that work. And it would be like a stimulant to me. Like when I would do those things, it was like, it was one of these, like, I almost felt like I needed to get up and do it then. And like I was,
you were excited about doing it. So yeah, that's, that you enjoy doing that because you like to hear the result after, and you're thinking about how it's going to sound, or at least I'm guessing that's what it would be for me. Writing is different for me, at least this part of writing. Like I do have certain parts that I can't do. Like if I've got a big scene coming up and I know it's going to be a very big emotional moment, and there's really powerful words going to be exchanged in it, I have to write that. I can't think about that and go to sleep because there's just too much emotion. I'm gonna get caught up in it. What I'm talking about is Bob walks into the convenience store and has to buy the cell phone that he's going to use to make this call, later. That's very, very important. But this scene is fucking boring, right?
Right. Yeah.
So you got to make this scene interesting somehow. How do you do that? Right. That's just a problem to solve. There's nothing exciting. I mean, occasionally I'll run across something like, ooh, I could introduce this new weird character, and that might be kind of exciting, and that might give me a little burst of excitement. Yeah. But mostly I'm just trying to figure out a way to make this not boring as shit. Yeah. Right. So that tends to lull me. Also, another thing I find is that if I've got something that's really bothering me or I'm really excited about it, it often helps for me just to do something and think about it before I go to bed. So like, I guess a good example would be there's times when I've got a really, like I've got an epiphany about something. Like this happens to me a lot sometimes at night because I think about things at night. So I have an epiphany hit me like a philosophical or some kind of a psychological epiphany, and I'm like, ooh, and I start really thinking about it and turning on it, right? I find if I don't do that right after I have the epiphany, when I go to lay down, I'm going to do that, right? So I got to give myself some space somewhere, to actually deal with this thing that just lit my fucking brain up, right? Or when I go to sleep, it's going to be like a candle burning,
Well, I also will deal with sometimes like anxiety keeping you awake. And I had a good example of this just a couple of days ago that you know a little bit about. But I've been kind of sick this week, and I needed to get up at 6 a.m. To come work out. And my head was hurting. I didn't feel that well the day before, and I was taking cold medicine, and it was, like the cold medicine itself, I don't know why, but I could just get, I feel sometimes a little bit
Jittery.
Yeah. And it's like, I guess that, like the guaifenesin or whatever is a stimulant. I don't know if it is or not, but I react to it that way or something like that. And I have a hard time going to sleep. But here's when my brain will start transforming. So I went to sleep or laid down. I don't remember what time it was. It wasn't particularly early anyway because I wasn't feeling that tired, but it was like midnight. Okay. Needing to get up at 6. That's only 6 hours. We were just talking about that. I'd be dumber the next day, but that's fine. But I'm thinking, okay, I'm finally tired enough. I'll lay down. But then like my brain started going into this, this idea of you're not going to get enough sleep and you're already not feeling well. And before I knew it, I laid there in bed trying to do the, lay there quiet and still for 20 minutes in a dark room with your eyes closed thing. And I had done that for an hour and a half.
Right. And
as more time went by, my brain was almost ticking this down and going, well, now you're only going to get 5 hours of sleep. How's that going to work for you? And I'm like, and you got to get up and go work out in the morning. It's going to be hard,
right.
And finally it was like 1:30 or something like that. And I was like, I'm never going to get to sleep if I know I've got to get up at 6 a.m. So I literally messaged you at like 1:30 in the morning and said, dude, I'm not going to be there.
Yep.
And I almost immediately fell asleep after that because it's like I had to get rid of that anxiety.
I had this experience almost every day for a year. Like when I developed narcolepsy, and I don't want to just detract from what you're saying too much. Yeah, when I was diagnosed with narcolepsy, I didn't know about it for a year. It's very weird for someone to acquire narcolepsy as an adult.
Well, can we talk about what narcolepsy is?
Yeah.
Because before you and I started talking about, before you had to deal with this, I had thought that I knew what narcolepsy was, and I think it gets portrayed this way in like movies, a lot of times comedies and stuff like that, as the idea that somebody can just fall asleep at really weird times. Yeah. That, they're just sitting at dinner and they fall asleep and their face falls in their soup, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So that's a confusion. So there's two diseases, narcolepsy and cataplexy. Cataplexy is the one people are thinking about when they see the narcolepsy portrayed in movies and TV. Yeah. Cataplexy is basically like a fainting goat. Okay.
Right.
So it's actually kind of the opposite because and it's usually associated with narcolepsy, but not always. But cataplexy is when you get excited. Sometimes you like basically go to sleep. Right. Okay. I don't have cataplexy. Narcolepsy is basically for one reason or another, your brain is unable to enter deep sleep. And so there's different phases of sleep. Everybody's heard of REM sleep, which is where you dream. But then there's also a deep sleep phase of sleep where you don't dream, and your brain essentially is resting. That's where your brain is recovering and recuperating. It's only a certain number of hours every night, and it's been a while since I read the books about this, but if I remember correctly, it's not all that much of it.
I want to say like average is something like 1 to 2 hours.
Yeah, it's not a huge amount.
Sleep, yeah.
But it is there, and it's incredibly important. So
and just to that point, like your body goes through these cycles all night long, where you go between like light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep, and there's also this thing called NREM, which I don't completely understand, but it's kind of like, so REM is random eye movement. Right.
Rapid eye movement.
Sorry, not random. And N, I can't remember what the N stands for.
EN or IN?
What's N? Just the letter N.
Oh, N. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. But it's like near REM sleep or something like that, which is kind of a subset of the REM sleep. But it actually, and I have some data around that I'll get to in a little bit, but
I'm sorry. The first acronym that came to my mind was not REM sleep. I was like, oh, it's every other kind of sleep.
That's all the rest of it, right? but I just wanted to say that in that it's not that you have this lump of an hour that you're just sleeping deeply and then the rest of it really cycles through.
Correct.
So you might only have like 15 minutes here and then a couple hours later. It's doing the Uberman, but only with
right
deep sleep.
Right. The problem is that disease I was talking about earlier, where you die after 2 years, that's a lack of the deep sleep. It's not lack of REM sleep or anything. It's deep sleep that's causing that. It's lack of deep sleep. So with narcolepsy, if you're prevented from achieving deep sleep, you'll end up having the same symptoms. For me, it was like I said, it's very rare that narcolepsy happens outside of something like traumatic brain injury as an adult. From my understanding, I mean, I'm not an expert in this, guys. I got the thing. I've talked to a bunch of doctors about it. I've read a few books about it. Okay. My recollection is that most people who have narcolepsy are either born with it or they undergo some kind of tragic, head injury or something, and they get
Or
it.
they did the Uberman sleep schedule.
Yeah,
No,
maybe.
I'm kidding.
I think I know what caused mine, but it's very weird, and no doctor agrees with me, so take that for what it is. Here's what I know for certain. I did not have narcolepsy. I had sleep apnea. My sleep apnea is pretty severe. It is caused by, well, it's hard to tell what it's caused by. It's a lot of different things, but part of what makes it difficult is that I have to breathe through my mouth, or I kind of feel like I'm suffocating. And the part of the reason for that, the doctor said, was because my turbinates were enlarged in my nose. Now, the problem with this is that I'm heavy enough if I sleep on my back or my side and I breathe through my mouth, my mouth gets super dry. It doesn't work out very well. I end up waking up, and if I sleep on my back, the weight of the tissue in my neck, it's kind of one of the doctors kind of described it to me as like. It's like trying to breathe really hard through a straw. It sucks the straw in, and you can't get anything. It kind of cavitates my throat and makes it to where I can't, just collapses my esophagus, makes it where I can't suck in air, and that wakes me up a certain number of times a night. That's the sleep apnea part. Okay, where the narcolepsy comes in is that normally with sleep apnea, the way it's treated and the way it's treated in me is with a CPAP machine. Which can go one or two. Basically, what it's doing is instead of you sucking air in, it's blowing air in. Right?
Okay, yeah. So it's like a positive pressure kind of thing.
It's exactly what it is. It's force feeding you air.
Yeah.
For me, I also happen to have an underbite that's fairly severe. The only way of fixing that is breaking my jaw. So
I can help with that if you need help.
That's not happening anytime soon. That's not a fun surgery to recover from, and I'm 50 years old and don't give a shit. So I am not doing that. So I have to use a nasal mask because the mouth mask will not fit over my mouth correctly.
Okay.
The full face mask won't do it. Well, I can do a full face mask, but it doesn't seal right. So anyway. And the pressures I'm using, full face masks, are pretty hard to get to seal anyway. So I use what's called a nasal pillow mask, which is basically these two little things about the size of a dime that are soft and like fit into your nostrils, right? And the mask comes over the top of your head and holds it in place. The problem with that is that, like I said, it feels like I can't breathe through my nose because my turbinates, well, according to the doctors, my turbinates are enlarged. And they swell. And your turbinates, so I got to get a little bit into this, so this makes a little sense too. Did a lot of research on this. Your turbinates are these little protrusions in your nose that are bone, small amounts of bone, surrounded by this tissue that is very filled with blood. With blood vessels, and that tissue can expand or contract to some degree based on how much blood is pumped into it. So they'll swell, is what the doctors are saying. And you've got 3 sets of these, I think, in your nose. Okay, like a lower, the middle, and the upper. And the lowers are the ones that usually cause this problem, supposedly. So I had the turbinate reduction surgery to try to solve this problem because what I was having before I was diagnosed with narcolepsy, before I had narcolepsy, was I had sleep apnea, and I was fine most of the time. But I got into this situation to where anytime I had a little bit of a cold or a little bit of congestion or anything, I couldn't sleep at all. So I ended up having a bottle of Afrin I kept by my bed. And whenever that happened, I would squirt the shit out of my nose. Afrin clears it right up.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you can literally hear them pop like as they reduce. Right.
Yeah.
And so then I could breathe, and I was fine.
But there's I'm trying to remember, but isn't there something bad about
Yes.
using Afrin
Yes.
over a long period of time?
So Afrin causes congestion rebound. So basically, once you start using it, you have to keep using it, and it also damages your sinuses and stuff like that. So they say. But really, what happens is that after using it for so long, it basically quits fucking working.
So it's almost like a tolerance that you're building up to it.
And when it quits working, you've got the congestion rebound so bad that you're going to have a very bad couple of days.
Yeah.
Right. So what I would do, the strategy I worked out, I would use aspirin until it got to where I couldn't use aspirin, and then I would take a weekend when that happened, and I would get blackout fucking drunk all weekend, right? Because then I could sleep, right? Because when I'm blackout drunk, I can sleep. And so, I would sleep it off that weekend, and by that point, my tolerance would be gone, and then Monday would come around, and I could use Afrin again, right? And so I did that for a long time until a doctor finally convinced me, hey, let's do this turbinate reduction surgery.
Yeah, like maybe the whole blackout drunk and doing so much Afrin and everything else, maybe this is not a good long-term strategy for you.
Yeah.
Got it.
Turns out he was full of shit. It was the correct strategy. I should have kept doing that. Anyway, he removed my lower turbinates. That is a surgery I would not wish on my worst enemy. I do not understand how people go through nose jobs at this point, because that was, I'll tell you what it was. I came out of the surgery and I was bleeding so bad they had to take me back into the OR and cauterize me again. So when I actually finally woke up, I had a beard of like crusted, dried blood and snot. Ooh. Like it was just, it looked like, it was a horror show, right? I get home and clean all that up, and my nose feels completely stopped up, because it is, they've jammed so much stuff in there to try to stop the bleeding. And so I can't breathe out of my nose for 2 weeks. There's 2 weeks I'm going to have this shit in my nose, and I cannot breathe out of it. I've already told you I can't breathe through my mouth when I sleep, right? I have to use a CPAP. So I had 2 weeks in which I could not sleep. And when I say I could not sleep, I mean I could not sleep. I didn't sleep at all. Yeah. It was a blur. Okay, it was a blur. I to this day, I watched. I binged Breaking Bad during this period, and to this day, I don't remember Breaking Bad. But if I see a scene in Breaking Bad, I remember. Oh yeah, something like this happened before that. Something like this happened afterwards. Yeah, I kind of remember this. Yeah. Right. But you could if you like start telling me, oh yeah, you remember when such and such did this? I'm like, nope, don't remember that at all. But I watched the entire thing and thought it was a great show. Right. That was my life for 2 weeks. Right. I get done with that. I can finally use my CPAP again. And initially it felt much better, right? Because I haven't slept for 2 fucking weeks, right? Yeah. But it became very obvious very quickly that this was not better. It was worse. And now Afrin doesn't help.
Oh, okay.
So I'm back in the situation where when I say it's worse, I mean, it feels like my nose is stopped up all the time now. Yeah. And nothing I do helps it. Now, to get into what the turbinates do, like I said, the turbinates are these bony protrusions that their job, they speculate, is to help your brain determine how much oxygen you're taking in.
Okay.
Because we kind of mentioned this in one of the other podcast episodes. I don't know if it's going to be before this or after this, but your brain doesn't really know a lot of the things you think it knows. Okay. One of the things it doesn't know is what your blood oxygen level is. It's not like you have a sensor that's sampling your blood every so often to see what your blood oxygen level is. It's estimating this shit. Okay. And one of the ways they think it's estimating this is by trying to estimate how much airflow is entering your system.
Okay.
And it does this by having lots of little hairs in your nose, which are attached to lots of little nerves. And those hairs move whenever air passes over them. Well, the problem is if your nose is a straight structure, the air is going to hit kind of inconsistently. It's not going to hit these hairs all in a nice uniform fashion. So your nose has these turbinates to kind of cause turbulence in the air, right? And cause them to hit all of your hair cells or your hairs and activate those nerves a little more consistently.
So I read something this week actually that what you just said makes it make more sense. It was talking about how, and this is a bit dark, but how you can, if you were, okay, so our air is like 70% nitrogen, right? And the nitrogen is basically inert to our bodies, and that it doesn't need to be there, right? And we can breathe more oxygen-rich air than what we have here, and it's because we need the oxygen, and of course breathe out carbon dioxide, but we need the oxygen, 100,000 times more than we need the nitrogen, right?
Right, sure.
But that if you were to breathe pure nitrogen, you wouldn't know it. Like your body you wouldn't feel like you were suffocating or anything like that. Your body will just go right on along, acting as if everything's okay until you start, like, things start fuzzing out on you, and then you end up dying because of oxygen deprivation.
Interesting.
But that there's no pain, there's no
panic.
Right, there's no panic, there's no emergency. Your body feels, and that's interesting because if it's really just the idea of those turbinates just kind of estimating based on airflow, then that makes sense to that, because your body just makes this assumption that whatever you're breathing is going to be the typical air that we have here. So anyway, go ahead.
So this is a speculation as to why. So there's a syndrome called empty nose syndrome, which occurs in some fairly significant percentage of turbinate reduction surgeries. And it's one of the reasons a lot of doctors will turn you away from turbinate reduction surgeries. I just happened to get an asshole in Florida who wanted to make money. The first doctor I went to in California about this, he did a version of a turbinate reduction, which basically just microwaves off the tissue, but leaves the bone. So it will eventually grow back. So if it doesn't help, then you're okay. And the recovery for that one wasn't bad at all. That was fine. It took me like a week, I think, and I was fine. But it also didn't help that much, right? So I should have taken that as, okay, well, this is probably not going to work. But instead, this other doctor convinced me that no, it just wasn't enough. You need to remove the bones, and then you'll have the solution you want, right? So in any event, that was why I ended up doing the full thing. But the danger there is this empty nose syndrome thing, which they do not understand. Okay. But it is this feeling of panic that occurs in people after their turbinates have been removed. And I think the leading, I would say there's probably two leading explanations for this, depending on which side of the fence you fall on. One of them is that it's basically psychosomatic. It's all in your head. Okay. And the other is that it's caused by this problem with the turbinates not providing enough turbulence anymore. Okay. And therefore the hairs are not picking up the signal, which tells your brain you're not getting enough oxygen, which causes it to be in a constant state of low-level panic, like you're constantly fucking not getting enough air. I would probably say I'm not in a constant state of low-level panic, but once again, I have a problem where if something is chronic, I tend not to notice it, so who fucking knows? What I do know is that I do feel a panic when I go to sleep. Not like a crazy panic, but a little bit of anxiety, right? I do, like, that is what prevents me from going to sleep, because it's like I will start to drift off and I'll get almost asleep and a burst of fear will hit me, like this burst of just like panic will
So
hit
you're
me.
not. So when you say that, I don't think you're describing this, but you know how a lot of people will, as they start to drift off, they'll have that sleep jerk, that feeling like they're falling or something like that. But is that what you're talking
No,
about? You're
'cause
talking about
I've had
something
that
different, right?
before too.
Okay,
I've had that before too, but and I do occasionally have that still, but that's not. There's not a panic in that. Like you feel it's like that's like a. Because it's funny because this is one of those things that mindfulness kind of teaches you too. It's funny because it's really the same feeling in your body, okay? Because like excitement, panic, excitement and anxiety basically are the same feeling in your body, but it's a different interpretation in your mind, right? Because you get all the same feelings. You get jittery, you get this burst of like manic energy.
Yeah.
It feels like everything's turned up to 11,
Yeah.
right? It's those are all the effects of adrenaline. The difference is just whether or not you're interpreting that as negative or positive.
Got it.
Okay.
Yep.
So the feeling is the same as the sleep jerk feeling, but for some reason, when I do the sleep jerk feeling, I don't feel anxious. I just feel like, at least not in the moment, right? It feels like, bam, some shit just happened, right? My arm just shot out for no fucking reason, right?
Like, whoa, that was weird.
Right.
I'm
And then I might feel a little bit panicky if I'm worried about why did it just do that, right?
Right.
But I don't feel it in the moment when it happens, right? This is different. This is like you're almost asleep and you hear the sound of breaking glass, or like you hear a child vomit. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's like this burst of panic. But except there's no reason, right? Yeah. I feel panicked and don't know why.
Got it.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that will happen over and over and over until you get so fucking frustrated you just get up, right? Okay. What I did to say all that to kind of get you back to the point where I'm having this 1 year problem. What happened for me during this 1 year problem is it went from me being able to take Afrin and the feeling of congestion going away in my nose and me being able to get to sleep to me not being able to me taking Afrin and it doing nothing. I still feel this congestion in my nose, but it's not as bad. But even if I can get over that, which I could sometimes, I would still feel this panic and it would wake me up almost every time.
Yeah.
So I did what I did before.
Drank.
Yeah. Right? And so I basically drank myself into a stupor for a year. But back to what you were talking about, I had many, many, many nights where even just blackout drunk, I could not I had this panicky feeling where I'm like, it's fucking midnight. I got to get up at 6.
Yeah.
I felt so bad today, and I had a full night of sleep last night. What the fuck am I going to feel like? I'm going to be hungover. I've already drank. What am I going to do?
Well, and the other thing I'm curious if you ever experienced, because I've seen this whenever I drink and go to sleep at night, particularly if it's a little more than I should have, is that I usually don't I'll go to sleep pretty easily, but then I'll find myself waking up in the middle of the night and my heart will be racing and I don't know. I don't know if it's just the effect of the alcohol or maybe the dehydration that goes along with drinking alcohol. But, it's not that uncommon for me to, fall asleep at 11 because I've been drinking and then wake up at 3 and my heart's beating too fast and all those types of things. And because of that, I have a hard time going back to sleep. Did you have any of that?
So I have that now if I drink much, but which I don't do very often. But back then I didn't, and I think it was a combination of two things. One, I was a professional drinker. I was good at it. So I
said you got paid?
No,
That's awesome.
But I got to where before I went to bed, I would drink 64 ounces of water and take a couple of multivitamins because that deals with most of the hangover problem right there, and it also deals with the dehydration problem you get. Yeah. It does add a pee problem.
Yeah,
okay,
I bet.
But I handled.
As a professional, did you have a catheter set up?
No, I had another solution for that as a professional. You just drink way, way, way more than you think you need. My normal night was 20 to 24 ounces of vodka. Like that's a normal fucking night for me for a year. Okay. I was so fucking drunk. I didn't wake up for anything. I was out, man. And as you can imagine, that does pretty bad things to you overall.
Yeah, I imagine your liver was not enjoying that year.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, I don't seem to have any liver problems. I don't, maybe that'll change as I get older, as things tend to do. But I do know drinking now, I start feeling sick pretty quickly. So I have lost my tolerance to it.
Yeah.
But any event, so that prevented me from doing that. But yeah, like I said, now I don't drink nearly as much, and I will wake up in the middle of the night and have heartburn and all kind of other problems, right? So and feel sick to my stomach. Like last time I got really drunk, I felt friggin' awful afterwards. So and had a hard time sleeping, even with my narcolepsy medicine. Speaking of which, the narcolepsy medicine for me, it was night and day. Like the doctor, it took me a year to figure out I had narcolepsy because, like I said, it never happens in adulthood unless you hit your head. Which honestly, maybe it happened during that 2 weeks when I couldn't sleep. It could be I had a mini stroke or something and it just fucked up some part of my brain, or it could be, it just caused necrosis or something in certain part. I don't know. All I know is that no doctor every doctor I've talked to seemed to think it was very weird that I developed narcolepsy without some obvious cause. Right. In any event, when I finally, the nose doctor just tried to string me along because he clearly didn't want me to think I had empty nose syndrome or whatever.
Right. He didn't want to have been the cause of the problem. Right.
So after a year of bullshit from him, I finally went to it wasn't even quite a year, it was like 9 months. I finally went to my sleep doctor, and my sleep doctor says, well, let's get you a sleep study scheduled. And he scheduled a sleep study. And so like at a year to the date, roughly, I got diagnosed with narcolepsy.
Okay.
And he said there was no doubt I had narcolepsy. He said, you did not enter deep sleep all night. And the next day they give you this little test where basically you have to stay up for like 30 minutes or an hour or something like that. Yeah. And then they say, okay, you're going to lay down, try to fall asleep. Right. And they time they give you like 15 minutes and they time how long it takes you to fall asleep. He said it took me like a minute and a half almost every time I lay down. I was instantly asleep and never went into deep sleep. Wow. So, he said it was pretty clear. So they first put me on this regimen of basically a sleeping pill and a stimulant. And the sleeping pill did not put me to sleep, and the stimulant didn't really keep me awake. So I came back after like a month, and I was like, I'm functional. Like, as functional as I was before, basically. I feel a little better, I guess. But it feels like we're just trying to Band-Aid the symptoms and not actually reaching the cause. Can you give me something that will actually put me to sleep? And he says, well, we have this one drug that works for some people, and people it works for, it works very well for, but it doesn't work for everybody. We can try it. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. He says, it's really hard to get insurance to cover it because it's basically, this is this is like cocaine level schedule drug. Like this is a hard drug to get. Yeah. Okay. You cannot go to a pharmacist and get this. There's a specialized pharmacy that ships this shit out to you like next day air, and you have to sign for it and provide an ID. Like this is the most like protected shit in the world. Okay.
Okay.
It's called Xyrem. And the reason it is sodium oxybate, I believe, is the generic formulation. It is chemically identical to the street drug GHB. Okay. Which is
the date rape drug.
Yes. Yeah. It's what Bill Cosby used to rape all his women. And he used a very small amount. Okay. Yeah. I take 9 grams of this shit every night. I take 9,000 milligrams a night. Okay. So I take a lot of this stuff. Yeah. All right. And it only keeps me out for 2 hours. So normally the way they have you break this up is you take 4.5 grams of it every 4 hours. If you're taking maximum dose, which I am, you take 4.5 grams of it every 4 hours. 4.5 grams of it does not keep me asleep for 4 hours. It keeps me asleep for 2. But 2.25 grams also keeps me asleep for 2.
Got it. So I take it every 2 hours.
Right. Okay. So I wake up 4 times a night, every single night. And go back to sleep 4 times a night, every single night. And this has been life-changing because it's like I actually get sleep now.
And deep sleep.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't feel as good as I did before all of this shit. I still don't feel like I'm at 100% even right after I wake up after all this stuff.
Yeah.
But this is way, way better. Like I'm more or less on an even keel for the most part. And I can sleep 8 hours a night no matter what. Like pretty much no matter what happens, I'm going to get my 8 hours of sleep because this shit knocks you the fuck out.
Yeah.
There have been times when I've been so worried about something that I have been able to resist the pull, but it's really rare. So my little techniques that I've talked about really do work for me for the most part.
So have you noticed any other either side effects or anything to taking that? And also, I think you said this earlier, but maybe I might have missed it, but do you dream?
Yeah, I do dream.
Okay.
It's rare that I remember my dreams. Now, it's kind of weird because it's like, I think it's a timing thing. Like they say, you only remember the dreams you wake up from.
Yep.
And so I suspect it's more of a timing thing than anything else because I'll go into certain, I'll have certain like strings where it seems like I'm remembering my dreams a lot. Mm-hmm. Like I'll wake up almost every day remembering a dream or sometimes multiple dreams because I wake up multiple times a night. Right.
Yeah.
And then I'll go through spates where I don't remember at all. Like I don't remember dreaming at all last night. So,
yeah. Well, and that is true. I mean, typically, at least according to studies they've done, like if you wake somebody up that's in the middle of REM sleep, then almost 100% of the time they can tell you what they were dreaming at that time. If you wake them up during light or deep sleep, like you're talking about, then they don't remember usually any dreams at all. Yep. The weird thing about, I was talking about the NREM and how it's like a subset of REM sleep, is that it's kind of this special place where things are a lot more disjointed and you tend to have fragmented memories of your dream. Like it's not something where you can like tell you what the plot was of the dream. It's more of I was in this place or remember the smell or, like it's very fragmented little pieces, but usually you have to be, and only about half the time do people remember even that in the NREM state. So it's almost like these bag lands.
Is the NREM like the part, so there's this part of going to sleep where you're in this kind of DMZ or like no man's land between being awake and being in REM sleep, where it's like you're dreaming, but the dreams contain things that you're hearing or that you've just recently seen, and you're conscious enough that you can kind of realize that those things are in real life and you're kind of dreaming them. And I don't know if that's that place, but that's an interesting place to be because that's where you can kick off. If you're mindful of it, you can kick off and lucid dream.
Right. Lucid dreaming is one of those things that's always kind of, I don't know. Like I've heard people say that you can teach yourself how to dream lucidly. And I think what we mean by that, and just make sure you and I are using the same vocabulary. And for anybody else that isn't aware, lucid dreaming is when you feel like you have control of what you're doing in your dream, that you're not just a passenger watching a movie, but that you can actually direct the movie.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. And which is very interesting to me because, here we go again, because you're not actually ever in control of anything. So it's like, this is why I said it specifically the way I said it, because it's like, that feeling of being in control is just your consciousness being aware of these urges to do the things. Like you do a lot of things throughout the day that you're not consciously aware you're doing, but you're still doing. Like you could be driving and not be consciously aware of being driving.
I know. Yeah. So many times I have driven somewhere and be thinking about other things and not even paying attention to, like, you don't remember passing things that you went past.
So we term that as we're not in control, right? We know we drove there, but we weren't really driving. We weren't really in control. Our conscious mind was elsewhere doing other things. And we were just on autopilot, right?
It's kind of like the little trick that you do where somebody will say, you're now manually breathing.
Right.
Like you were not paying attention at all to the fact that you were breathing. But as soon as somebody tells you that, then you realize that you start controlling the rate and the depth of your breathing for a little bit until you get distracted by something else and you keep breathing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is why I put it that way, because it's kind of like the difference is when you're actually dreaming and you're not lucid dreaming, it's like watching a story or a show, right? It's you don't feel like you have any agency at all because your conscious mind isn't really involved. But in this middle state, your conscious mind's still a little bit there, just a little bit, just enough to where you can kind of recognize. And you can recognize, when you recognize that, it kind of kicks off this other urge. I mean, I've done this before, so I do know what this feels like. There's this urge that comes up. It's like, oh, wait a minute, I can do things. Like that thought comes up, right? And when that thought comes up, here's the tricky part. It usually comes with excitement, okay? Because it's like, ooh, I recognize I'm in the thing, right?
Yeah.
If you feel the excitement, it's over. Because the moment you feel the excitement, you're going to wake up, right? So you have to catch it before the excitement comes up. You have to have that logical thought of, ooh, I can control things, but without the ooh. Okay.
Got it.
You know? And this is really, in my experience, it's always, because I can't do this on command. In my experience, it's always been just kind of like happenstance, just kind of random. Like when I have been able to take control of my dreams, it's always been very short term and very random, because that thing will occur and it won't have the ooh, and I'll go, let's try this. And I try it and it works, and then I get excited. And that's it. The moment you get excited, it's over, because you can't maintain the illusion anymore, you know, and you wake up. But
well, so I've had dreams a lot where I think are in that space that you're talking about, where it's like you half know, you're half in a dream and half conscious of what's going on in the space around you. Like I know that I've had dreams even recently where I will think that I looked at the time to see what time it was, but I didn't. And like I will think that I know things, and like laying there deciding whether to get up or go back to sleep. But I will think that I know things that I don't actually know because I dreamt them instead of them being real.
Yeah, you'll have things like enter your head like, oh yeah, I don't have to do that thing today. I'm all good. That's not on my schedule or whatever. It's just like a random thought that isn't real that pops into your head.
Right.
But it appeases you enough that you can go, oh, I can just go back to sleep.
But I've also had nights where I've been in and out of that all night because of, you know, I've talked about doing late night deployments, for example. There a lot of times we would finish, you know, middle of the night, and I go to bed, and for what, you know, I don't know exactly what caused it. I'm going to assume it's some sort of anxiety or something, but you feel like you're still doing the thing all night after you go to bed. It's like I'm suddenly back on that call, and like I can look at my clock in my bedroom and say, it's 4 a.m. and even have this kind of thought of, I thought we finished this. Why am I still on this call? But at the same time, I'm experiencing now there's this problem that we're having to deal with, and it's going to take until 6 a.m. and, you know, like, and I call them work mares.
I've had those before too, actually. Yeah.
But they're not, it's not always work related, but it's usually like, same experience, but, you know, different subject. I used to play an MMO where a lot of times we would do these big raids with dozens of people that would all be on there at the same time. And you might spend several hours into, you know, midnight, 1 a.m., whatever, doing these big things.
Right.
And then you go to bed. And then, like, I guess because of the intensity of it or whatever, you feel like you're still doing that all night in your dreams. But again, it's like you're in that little space in between being conscious that, or recognizing that you're dreaming, but still feeling like you're doing that thing because you're paying attention to I know what time it is and it's really late and why are we still doing this? but you still think you're doing it, right?
Yeah. I do know that like like I said, I don't do it, but I do know people who have done lucid dreaming. They've intentionally tried to get better at lucid dreaming.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with figuring out a way to recognize you're in a dream, and to not get excited about it. So it involves a lot of habituating yourself to doing certain things and it being normal. So, like, for example, you mentioned looking at the time. Like, one of the things that's very, very typical in a dream is time is nonsensical. The clocks won't read correctly. They'll read shit like it's 1472 or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Or I've noticed that with a lot of dreams where you try to read a sign.
Yep.
Or something
That's
like
the
that,
other
and
thing.
the
You cannot read the words.
Yeah.
Though I have heard that if you have an audiobook played to you, you can kind of read the audiobook. But I haven't tried it.
Okay.
But anyway, a lot of it a lot of it boils down to doing habitual things like looking at a clock a certain number of times, like looking at your watch, like and tracking very, very clearly. Does this make sense? Right? Just doing it like 14 times a day. Like people set alarms to remind them to look.
It's kind of reminding me, you saw the movie Inception, you know, the little token that they
Yeah,
had. I mean, that's what you're talking about.
It's from real shit.
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
Like
yeah.
so that's what I'm saying. Like so one of the common techniques, you set an alarm and then you do one of these things. You either check your watch or you like spin around in a circle, because that's the movement apparently stops the anxiety. Or so I think there was one where you check your watch and then you spin around in a circle, whatever. But you do this, you set that alarm, and then you have the alarm go off at night. Okay, it's just a low beep that can't wake you up, but that you can hear.
Yeah.
Right in your dream. So when you're in deep sleep, it shouldn't affect you. But when you're in your dream, you're going to hear it activate every so often. And when you hear that alarm activate, you will habitually pull your arm up. You're not thinking about it. You're not conscious. It's habit. You're pulling your arm up, checking your watch, and making sure the numbers make sense, right? Because that's all habit, right? And the moment they don't make sense and you start to feel excited, you spin around, because that's also habit. I have not done this specifically for the spin around part, because to make the spin around part work, I feel like what you got to do is every time you get excited about something, you got to spin around a fucking circle.
Wait, now, do you mean literally like get up out of bed, or you mean
no? So in the dream,
in
you're
the
spinning,
dream,
but in order for that to be habitual, every time you feel excited, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I have not done that part. Also, I've got way too many sleep problems right now to be fucking around with my sleep anymore. But that's apparently the technique you can use if you want to learn how to do this.
So, okay, that's interesting. I mean, it's always kind of felt like one of those people want to talk about lucid dreaming and think about, you know, it's like I can control my dream. And I know what you're talking about, you don't really control anything. But like I've always taken it as being I can choose what I dream. And I don't think they're the same thing.
Yeah, they are the same thing. You could so this is secondhand knowledge. I'm gonna give you secondhand knowledge, okay? And I'm gonna describe the person it's coming from as best as I can, okay? Right. Because I do not have a good relationship with this person anymore. I don't think that's my fault, but I think he thinks it's my fault. And I think the guy's not super well adjusted in a lot of ways, but he is one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life.
All right.
Okay, and I don't think he was lying, even though a lot of the things he said were so far out there. You really, it really stretches the boundaries of. But I knew the guy for 12 years, and I can probably count on one hand the number of times I think he lied to me.
Okay.
So, he said he went down this road for this technique, and he told me enough things about it that I think at least a lot of this is true. So he's the first person that I heard about these techniques of setting alarms.
Yeah.
He also talked about using special types of glasses that, and I've done this before. I've used the mind machine thing, and you have too.
Yeah.
Where it kind of tries to synchronize your brain waves at certain frequencies.
With music and light frequencies. And
so you use those to do that. You can also use them to trigger you at certain times of the night when you see a certain color flash, because you can still see that color. When you see a certain color flash in your lids, right, it can trigger you to do the techniques to make lucid dreaming occur.
Okay.
But he said he got really into it and got really good at it, and he's the one that told me the reading books thing. He was like, I really suspect that you can read a book if you do it that way. You cannot do it in any other way, but I suspect you could do it in that way.
With the audiobook.
Yeah. The reason he said he quit doing it is because he used it to do work.
Oh, okay.
So he would use it. He had too much time, too much shit going on, and he needed to figure out certain things.
So basically, the same reason that you did the Uber sleep schedule, he was hacking his sleep in a different way, which
Yep.
was
And he said it worked. He said he would have an intractable problem in his head, and he would go to sleep and he would go into a lucid dream and he would work on the problem. And when he woke up, he would have a solution to the problem. So he said it did work, but here's what happened. In order for it to work, he had to imagine himself at work with all the people at work. And he said he would go through days at work with these people, have conversations, have relationships, like all kinds of things. And then you wake up the next morning and none of that shit happened. And it fucked him in the brain. He was like, I had a hard time keeping reality and dreaming separate.
I could see how that could be the case. And you know, I would say this was involuntary. I've never, as far as I know, ever felt like I was in control of a dream. I've always been in that, you know, watching something happen. But I know that I've crunched on things in my head, and I've absolutely had cases where I was trying to figure out how to solve a problem. Usually it was like in programming where you're trying to figure out how to design something so that, you know, how do you design something more efficiently so it's easy to maintain and you don't have to write, you know, if you can write one class that does everything because you're really going to have 37 different versions of that, you figure out how to do that without having to write 37 classes, right? Sure. And I know that I've had times where I've been in either that weird state of being half awake, half asleep, or just dreaming about something and waking up and have solved that in those cases and go, I bet that'll work.
Right.
You know, but again, it was never a case where I was intentionally doing that. Like I might have had it on my mind, and because it was on my mind, I dreamt about it, but it wasn't, I'm going to choose to dream about this and figure it out.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've had a lot of the same thing. I know I've also had situations where, you know, I have went to bed with a problem on my mind, woke up the next morning without remembering a dream at all, and had the solution just pop in my head. You know what I'm saying? So I do suspect that some of that shit's going to happen anyway, and maybe he's attributing, you know, benefit where there actually was none. But the way he told me the why he stopped part of that story made me think that actually did have some kind of an emotional impact.
And I could see that. I could see how that could mess with you.
Yeah.
Because you'd have you'd have these conversations, like you said, and then you go to try to reference that in the real world with the person and realize that didn't actually occur, but you.
Yeah. Well, he said specifically he had developed a romantic relationship with another coworker in the dream, and he woke up and realized, holy shit, that was just a dream. And he was so heartbroken that he was just like, I just can't do this anymore. You know?
Now I've had, I'm sure most people have, but there have been times that I've woken up from dreams and felt that way. Again, it wasn't a lucid dream, I don't think, but you're in a dream, and we'll just say that, you know, things are a way that you wish they were, you know, and I'll leave that kind of vague, but you know, you just imagine in your dream that things are different than they are, better in some way. And then you wake up, and when it hits you that it was a dream,
it's like grief.
It is. Yeah. It's grief, and it affects you in the waking world, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's loss. It's a real feeling. You know,
it is, and it's. I went through a period where that was frequent.
Yeah. I have too. I know. I think I know what you're talking about in your life.
Yeah. I really went through a period where that was frequent. I mean, it would happen twice a week.
Yeah.
You know, for a long time, and you know, you wake up and it's like, I mean, I think everybody's, you know, went through some level of, you have a dream and it makes you feel a certain way when you wake up. You had a nightmare and you're scared when you wake up, or, you know, you had some sexual dream and you wake up horny, or what, you know, whatever. But, you know, even things like that, things about loss or things about, or maybe it's not. I mean, I've had dreams where I remember having a dream one time a long time ago when my kids were small, that one of my kids had died.
Oh, God.
And in the dream, it was literally going through like planning the funeral
Holy
and all that
shit.
other kind of stuff. But on the flip side of that, you wake up.
Oh yeah, I bet you was like
Exactly,
so
like,
relieved.
thank God,
Yes,
like
yeah.
but this is like the opposite of that
Yep,
too,
it is.
and but it just, the effect that it has on you when you wake up, it feels real. So just again, going back to the person you were talking about, I can absolutely see how, people want to say it's just a dream. How many times have you heard that? Parents tell their kids that when they wake up from a nightmare or whatever. But it feels so many times so much stronger than just a dream.
Yeah, I know. That's one of the things that we have trouble with, because we don't. Again, this is back to understanding your own self and your emotions and stuff. But we don't really understand our emotions. We don't really understand the scenario we're in. The scenario we're in is that emotions are real. Like, it doesn't really matter whether what caused them was real or not.
Yeah.
They're real. So you have to deal with them as being real. And so when your child is feeling an emotion, what you're trying to do when you say, well, it's not real, you're trying to remove the emotion. You're trying to say,
Right.
well, you shouldn't be feeling this, right? But that's what they're hearing, is that I shouldn't be feeling this. And what you need to be doing is you're safe now.
Right.
It's okay to feel the feeling. The feeling's there. Just let it wash over you. It's going to be fine. Just feel it. And when it's gone, let it be gone.
Yeah, I tend to be very trying to find the right word, rational. I think,
Yeah.
and it's like you want to try to explain to the child why what they dreamt.
But emotions aren't rational.
Well,
Like,
exactly, and that's the thing. It's like I can try. I remember one of my kids, for whatever reason, had these dreams about witches. Like, I don't know. Like, there were 2 or 3 times
I got
over
one
a
like
couple
that, yeah.
of weeks where they were dreaming about witches, and like they were scared of witches. Don't even know where that came from. Like, it wasn't around Halloween or anything like that. I don't know whether it was something that was brought. I mean, they were little, like 3. I don't know if it was like a Dora the Explorer cartoon, that suddenly there was a witch mentioned. I have no idea. But yeah, it was like, in my mind, I'm sitting there trying to like explain to them how witches aren't real and, all these things. But you're right. It's like, regardless of the rational, well, first of all, 3-year-olds aren't particularly rational anyway, but yeah, it's that they feel it as real. And in this particular case, it wasn't just nightmares. It was also night terrors,
Yeah.
which is kind of a different thing for anybody that's, and it kind of dovetails into what I want to talk about with the sleepwalking stuff, because night terrors are very closely related to sleepwalking.
Well, before we get into sleepwalking, I want to talk about 2 dreams I've had that you just reminded me of.
Okay.
I think are funny stories. So the first one is just related to the grief and loss. So I did not have a good relationship with my father for most of my life. And he passed when I was, I want to say 34, so somewhere around there. Right before I moved to California, actually. Anyway, I was more heartbroken by him passing than I expected, but a lot of that was because there was a lot of family drama in there too, and that was pretty painful. But I felt like I mourned and got over him pretty quickly, partially because we didn't have a great relationship, right? Mm-hmm. But things tend to linger, I think. Emotions tend to, there's more to you than you know a lot of times. And I have had probably half a dozen times over the intervening period where I've had a dream about him, where he's been in my dream and we've done something.
Yeah.
I remember the only one I can really remember strongly is I remember he had a new car he wanted to show me. And he's where I got my love for high performance cars.
Yep.
And so he had a new hot rod he wanted to show me, and we went out and took it around and he let me drive it and all that. And we had a good conversation. It was a really emotional dream. And I remember out of every time I've had this, I've woken up and felt more heartbroken than when he actually died.
Wow.
And I think it's because when he actually died, I couldn't bring up any of the memories of when I was little. And, you know, your parent is, it's like your world, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Your parent is so important when you're tiny. And so I don't think it ever really hit me when he died how much I had lost. And in those dreams, it wasn't specific memories of when I was a child, but it was like replaying the same kinds of things, you know? And so, I don't think I ever truly mourned him until I dreamed about him, really.
Wow.
And so it was, in a way, I think dreams help you process sometimes things that you were too emotionally distant to process in the first place.
Yeah.
So that was the not happy story. The happy or funny dream story I want to bring up that you talked about your kids with night terrors. I think the difference in night terrors, at least for me, and just a regular bad dream, is that every time I've had a night terror, it was lucid.
Okay.
So I'll tell you the first one I ever had. It's also the first dream I can ever remember. It's actually probably my first memory. I was something like 2 or 3. And I know I was that little because I remember my dad picking me up.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember the first thing I remember I was very upset. I was crying and screaming, and I was talking about I'll tell you what I'd seen. I had seen this image of the stereotypical devil.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know,
Horns, pitchfork,
pointy
Tail.
goatee, black goatee, horns, whole nine.
Yep.
Completely red. You know, no clothes. That guy.
Yeah.
Okay. So no clothes, but apparently no genitalia. I mean, that guy, but weirdly nipples. Anyway. Okay. That guy. Right. And he was coming after me and was going to get me. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, we went to very strict Baptist churches. So it's very clear where the idea of the devil getting me came from, right?
Yeah.
The rest of it is not so clear. My dad was saying, my dad was asking, "What's wrong, Brian? What's wrong?" He picks me up, you know, and I remember him picking me up, me being so small, and him setting me on the bar so he could look me in the eye, right? He didn't sit me. I stood on the bar. Okay. He said, so I'm standing on the bar, and I'm looking him in the eye. That's how little I am. And he says to me, he says, Brian, what's wrong? Why are you crying so bad? And I finally get out, a woman's coming to get me. A woman's coming to get me. And he said, what are you talking about? A woman, Brian? And I said, a woman's coming to get me. And he said, Brian, your mom's a woman. And he pointed to my mom, and I just burst out screaming. I was just in terror. I was like, ah! You know, because to me, a woman looked like the devil, right? That's what a woman was, right? So I had confused, anyway, in my dream, I confused those two things. But that one was so bad because it wasn't like a normal dream. It was as vivid as reality, right? And I was running from her. I remember I was running from her, you know, from the devil, right?
Yeah, the devil woman.
Yeah. So I had
woman.
I had the same kind of night terror, which falls into your category, I think, with the sleepwalking, right? A little bit like I was about 5. And here's the dream. A noise wakes me up. I sit straight upright in bed. My closet door flies open, and out of the inky blackness, like a shadow that's darker than the other shadows, like a witch.
Yeah.
Okay, long nose, pointy hat, big ears, comes out of the closet, right? I can see this darkness superimposed on darkness coming out of the closet. And I jumped out of bed and ran out of the room
So it wasn't a sleep paralysis demon.
No,
'cause you
no.
were able to move.
I jumped out of bed, ran out of the room, ran across the hall, and jumped into my mom and dad's bed, and told them I had a bad dream, and they covered me up, and I went to sleep.
Yeah.
Okay. What happened was I jumped up out of bed and ran across the hall and went to bed.
Right.
Okay. The rest of it was a dream. Okay. But it was exactly as if
Yeah.
the whole thing was just one fucking thing.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
And so I remember my dad even going in there and checking the room, you know, but so.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about sleepwalking, sleep talking, stuff like that, because like you were talking about with, you've got a lot of history with sleep disorders. You talked about sleep apnea and your necrophilia. And, like I'd never really thought of this as a disorder. I always just thought of it as a weird quirk, but it's had some really almost close to being devastating kind of consequences at times, and I'll explain that. But as long as I can remember, people told me I sleptwalk. Like I remember being a kid and my parents saying that I would get up out of bed and come and say something to them and then go get back in bed. They'd tell me to go back to bed and I wouldn't remember it. And I'm just like, oh, it's a kid thing. I'll outgrow it or whatever. But I never did. Probably the first time that I remember sleepwalking, that was, I don't know how to put it. Well, I guess when I woke up in it and like realized that I was sleepwalking, I guess is what I mean, was, I locked myself out of the house. So my parents or my family lived in this double wide mobile home that was up on a hill, and it was summer and my parents would get up early and go to work, and me and my grandmother still lived there. And I was, I don't know, at the time it was probably something like 7th or 8th grade, somewhere in there. And, I woke up, like I went to sleep in my bed that night. I woke up on the deck outside, and trying to get in the door, and the door was locked. And I was in my underwear. So like I would sleep in a t-shirt and tighty whities, right?
Nice.
And
you were up on a hill where everybody
yeah,
could see
up
from
on
the
a
road.
hill. I mean, the road wasn't like really close, but it was close enough.
And it wasn't busy, but still.
Right, still. And so I woke up and I'm like, how did I get out here? I didn't remember anything about it. I just remember I woke up on the porch and trying to open the door, and I can't. So like I said, my grandmother was there. So I had to walk around the front of the house because her bedroom was on the front of the house. I had to walk around the front of the house and bang on her window because she was still asleep, to get her to wake up to come let me in the house. But so
I bet her thought was, what the hell are you doing outside in your underwear?
I don't remember the exact conversation, but she wanted to know what happened, and obviously she didn't want me to have had woke her up either. But but I didn't remember anything. It was like, obviously I had. Well, I say obviously. My assumption is, I don't know how obvious it is, that I was dreaming something, and that I had gotten up and felt like I needed to go outside as part of that dream, or even, and I'll give you another example in a minute, or even I was dreaming I was somewhere completely different or doing something completely different, and just followed those steps in real world where I thought I was doing something else. I have no idea, but I had that happen. So I don't know, a year or two later, around the same age, I had this dream, same house. This was middle of the night though. I had this dream that the house was on fire. Okay. And I got up out of my bed and I swore I saw smoke at the ceiling. And I thought the house was on fire, and I thought, I gotta get out. So again, this is what's happening in my dream. Okay. So I go to the door to leave my bedroom, and I can't get out the door, that there's all these things that are piled up in my way and I'm trying to climb over all this junk that's in front of my door. Now, I had kind of a messy bedroom, so that maybe that made sense in the dream. but I felt like I was trying to climb over all these things to get to the door, and I could not get through everything, and I was panicking because the house is on fire and I can't get out, you know. And my heart's racing, and I wake up kind of and come to the realization in the midst of all this that I'm actually in my closet. And I was, and if my bedroom was messy, my closet was just a pile of junk. Okay. And I'm literally it was a walk-in closet, not super huge, but, big enough that, I could go in there and close the door and try to climb over all the things that were in my walk-in closet. And that's what I was doing. And I woke up like in the middle of my closet in the dark, trying to get through stuff. And it just, so those couple of times, and there were a couple other smaller incidents here or there, but yeah, those two really stuck with me, and I was like, okay, I sleepwalk. And even here I am as a teenager, I sleepwalk.
So this just occurred to me as you was talking about it this time. Was it terrifying to you that you sleepwalked? Because I think to me, I would that would really it would be like a loss of control kind of freak out, because like, not now, but like, because now I'm, like, I don't believe in free will, but back then I did. I'm just being very direct. Like back then I did.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, I watched possession movies, and it scared me more than anything else, because this idea that something could take control of your body and you could do horrible things and not even know it. You know what I'm saying? It worried me so. Like there's been cases where people have apparently killed people while under the influence of while sleepwalking.
I even saw a case where somebody got acquitted. Because of that. Yeah.
And it scared me so much, because it's like, oh my God, what if I woke up in the middle of the night and killed everybody I loved, and then didn't know it, or something like that? That would really scare me. Did that terrify you?
Well, I hadn't really thought about that now, so thanks a lot.
My gift to you, Michael.
No, I mean, at the time, no, but I had things that happened later that I'll talk about in a minute that have really caused me to worry more about it, be more anxious about it. But no, at the time, I think, as just a teenager and realizing this happened every once in a while, and it wasn't like an every night thing. It wasn't even an every week thing. It seemed like it was, there might be a couple of times a year that, and maybe it happened more than this and nobody knew it, right? Maybe I didn't wake up during it, or maybe I didn't try to interact with anybody. I have no idea, because I'm asleep, right. Again, it's one of those things that you don't remember, right?
Sure.
So I don't know exactly how often it happened or still happens. But I know that, even within the last couple of years, it still happened occasionally. Yeah. So, but no, at the time I was a teenager, and I just kind of thought, well, this is kind of this weird quirk, but I kind of assumed, I think, that it wasn't abnormal. It was just like well, this is weird. And that was about it. And it was something funny to tell people about. Sure. And that was really about it. But as far as being anxious about it, so like, I went on through, those types of things happened on and off, and it just wasn't a big deal. Right. Ended up getting married, getting divorced. And so I was in, like, I don't know, 26, 27 years old, something like that. And I lived in this condo, third floor condo up at Lake Norman, north of Charlotte. And when I first got separated, I had stayed with a friend for about 3 months, I think, and just kind of crashed at his house while I was figuring out what I was going to do. And then I got this condo, and it just so happened that this same friend ended up needing somewhere to stay, around a year later. And, I thought it's the least I can do, let him come. And I didn't have another bedroom. He slept on a futon in my living room, but he was there, and the idea was that it was going to be temporary. And it was like 6 months later, and he was really kind of setting up shop in the place, if you know what I mean. Yep. And he had a girlfriend, and like the girlfriend was suddenly there every night. Oh, yeah. And it was becoming really uncomfortable, and I would get anxious about it. And I was trying to figure out how to bring it up to him, and sure. and I wasn't sure how to approach it, because he had been there for me. And, you know, at some point, but, you know, it was like he had a spare bedroom. I didn't.
Right.
And, you know, so he's like right there, and, you know, him and his girlfriend and whatever they were doing, whenever they were doing it, was right in the middle of the living room.
Yep.
So, you know, it was
Yeah, it's a little awkward.
It was a little more awkward, and it was, I don't know. It was uncomfortable. And I did not get the feeling that it was going to end anytime soon.
Right.
So I'm sure all that fed into this one evening. But one night I have this dream, okay, that I had hired a hitman to come kill him. and you know, we were talking about looking at clocks and all that. So I distinctly remember like looking at the alarm clock that I had on my nightstand, and it said it was 12:03 a.m. So just after midnight. And in my mind, in this dream, when I had hired this hitman to come kill him, he was going to come there, and he said, I'm going to kill whoever is in that condo. Make sure you're not there.
Right.
At midnight.
Right.
And so I was like, oh crap, I got to get out of here. So the bedroom that I had in this condo had there was a balcony that looked out over the lake, and there was a door from my bedroom and then a door from the living room that went out onto the balcony. And the door from my bedroom actually had a key lock on it, even to go out it. Like it was just a key deadbolt. There wasn't like a little pull turn switch or whatever. So it was a key from either side. That was kind of weird design. I don't know why they did it that way, but
maybe this is.
But thank God they did, because in my mind I'm thinking, okay, I can't go out the front door because he might already be here.
Right.
I've got to sneak out the back.
Right.
So if I go out on the balcony, there's bushes down underneath. You know, I can jump off the balcony.
Mission Impossible, this motherfucker.
Yes, and the bushes will break my fall.
It'll break something,
or maybe stab me through the gut. I have no idea, but in my mind, I'm thinking the bushes will break my fall, and I can kind of go hide until the deed's done, right? And in real life, I get up and turn the lights on and start getting dressed and put my shoes on. And I'm looking for my keys to unlock that door when I start to wake up, because I was well on my way to go out there, and like my heart was racing, just like we were talking about. I mean, it felt real. And like I got to a point where I'm looking around for my keys and thinking, oh crap, I think my keys are out there, like in the living room. They're not in the bedroom with me. And I'm worried about the hitman being here already. And like, it gave me pause. And I felt my brain starting to like cycle through everything I was thinking and going, wait a minute, this doesn't quite make sense. Like something's not quite right. And eventually it was like, oh crap, this isn't real.
Yeah.
But literally I'd gotten dressed, put my shoes on, looking for my keys, ready to try to get out of here. I mean, and I have no doubt that if they had been readily available, I would have been out on the balcony.
Sure.
And I don't know whether I would have actually jumped off or not, but I know that there are other people who have dealt with similar things where they have done very dangerous stuff like that.
I think it's interesting. Like, there's a couple of things that occurred to me when you're telling this story. One is that it kind of seems like you were in that kind of weird middle place where you weren't quite awake and you weren't quite asleep, because you saw the clock and it read a specific time.
Yes.
And was the time right when you woke up?
Oh, yeah. It definitely was.
So you were seeing, you were definitely seeing you're putting your clothes on. So you were definitely interacting. You were clearly seeing real things in the room and interpreting them as real things in your mind, right? So it kind of is, first of all, it feels like you were in that state. And the second, it feels like when you actually woke up was when things got difficult enough that you had to engage enough of your conscious mind to actually plan shit and like really figure out what you were going to do. You know, you had to solve a problem that wasn't just an instant, solution thing. So it kind of seems like that's kind of maybe a safety feature. Like if you're worried about shooting up your whole family or something, then make sure your gun's in a safe that's fairly difficult to open.
Right. And maybe the ammo is stored somewhere else.
Right.
And
Well, I mean, though you really don't want to do that if you want to protect your house, because you know. But you want to kind of make it at least have a step in there where you've got to really engage your conscious. Like maybe the last part of the solution for the safe, unlocking the safe, is a math problem or something. You know what I'm saying?
So what you're saying is, do not sleep with just a butcher knife under your pillow.
No,
because
and this is kind of the other thing that this kind of thing doesn't bother me anymore about, losing quote unquote losing control during sleepwalking or demon possession or anything else. Is my belief in how the brain works at this point, or my understanding of how the brain works at this point, because I would say I've seen this in my own mind, so I it's not just a belief, but is that whatever comes out of that is going to be shit that was in your head already. Like you're not going to go from loving your wife and children with all of your heart to waking up in the middle of the night and stabbing them dead. Like that is not going to happen.
Right.
That was in your head already. Like you were already chewing on that. Right.
So you're saying I really did want to have my roommate killed.
Yes. Yes, I actually do. And considering I know who this is, I 100% think that's the case. Anyway, so yeah, I think it's like hypnosis. I don't think you can, like they say, you can't make someone in hypnosis do something that's completely alien to them.
Right. Yeah.
Like they have to already have some kind of a desire there to do it. So, or at least not an aversion to it. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's probably the same. I don't think you're going to wake up in the middle of the night and do anything completely out of character.
No, I don't think so either. But, there things that I've done. I mean, so everything I've described so far, other than me having to wake my grandmother up, like I didn't interact with people during those situations. I was, I was either a teenager or an adult, but I was sleeping alone, and like it was all kind of self-contained. But I've had several instances where I've been sleeping in the bed with somebody and like interacted with them, and they didn't know what was going on. And like, I've scared people before. I mean, there was one case where, this was back when I was married, where my wife at the time was laying in the bed beside me, and like, she told me about this the next day. Like I didn't wake up during it. It was just one of those things where she was like, "Do you remember last night?" And I was like, "No." Like I would hear that question a lot because
you'd be like, "Uh-oh."
Really, I would like steel myself because it would be like, "Oh, it happened again." But I remember, or what had happened that one night that I don't remember. She told me about was that just in the middle of the night, I suddenly clamped my hand over her mouth and went, "Shh.
Be very, very quiet."
And she said, I'm just like, I looked really intense, and I like covered her mouth and just went, "Shh." And she freaked out because she was like, "What's going on? Is somebody in the house? Like what?"
"I'm hunting rascally rabbits."
And then eventually she realized that I was, asleep and got me to like just go back to sleep.
Yeah.
And so many other times, like
being a fucking weirdo.
Yes. So many other times I've had times, when I was married or, with my girlfriend now, where like there was one night that I woke her up. And I'm like, and I asked her because my kids will come and visit, pretty regularly, and I woke her up in the middle of the night and said, "Are the kids here yet?" And she's like, "They're not coming tonight. They're somewhere asleep, but they're not here." I'm like, "Why aren't they here?" So that was one night. I mean, that was one not that long ago. Or like I remember dreaming that I was at a tennis match. Okay. I don't know why I was at a tennis match, but I was at a tennis match, and I grabbed a hold of her arm and said, "We got to move." And in my dream, I was dreaming that we were in somebody else's seat or we were blocking something. I don't remember what it was, but we weren't in this place we were supposed to be.
Right.
And I was trying to tell her we had to change our seats. And I said, we got to move. But this wasn't that long after, because I built a new house about 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago. And it wasn't that long after we had moved in. And she just, I'm grabbing her in the middle of the night and saying, we got to move. And she's like, we just moved in. and man, I mean, I went through this period of, I don't know, I want to say like a year where I had these dreams that would result in me getting up. I would be very anxious. And this was back when I was married, but it had something to do with my dad. And my dad passed away when I was 18. So, I've had, twice as much life without him that I had with him. But I would have these dreams where there was something that I was supposed to do. And like I would remember how I felt when I would wake up, but like I would feel like I had slept longer than I was supposed to, and I had to get up and do this thing, and I wasn't supposed to still be asleep, and it had something to do with my dad. And I had that several times. It was really weird. And I would wake up, like in a panic, but I wouldn't even be in bed. I'd be like up, like trying to go do something, and a lot of times my wife would kind of catch me and say, go back to bed, it's okay, go back to bed, and I would do that. And she would even tell me about it sometimes when I didn't remember it. Mm-hmm. And other times I would feel like I would wake up in the middle of like feeling this panic of, I was supposed to do this thing. The same panic as thinking about the hitman. I was the exact same thing. Like I had overslept when I was supposed to be doing something.
Right.
And it would take a little while for me to like calm back down and realize that it was just a dream, right? Yep. But for me, it wasn't just a dream. I would get up and interact with people and do things, and it just so that it still happens. It happens all the time. It's really kind of weird. But
so I've heard conflicting things about this. Does waking you up cause any problems?
I mean, no. I mean, you hear people say that.
Don't wake them up. Yeah, right. but I like my first reaction to any time you did something crazy would be just to like, I don't know, slap you lightly on the face or something. Say, hey,
that's
dummy,
your first
wake
reaction
up.
to anything. No.
I said lightly, Michael. That's.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's confusing. I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah. And it's, when I have woken up in the middle of those things, it's always this cognitive dissonance between what I believed and what I see.
Right.
Right. Because I'm dreaming of something that I'm somewhere else doing something else.
Really jarring.
And then kind of recognizing my own environment, recognizing it's the middle of the night and I'm in bedroom and I've been sleeping. And it's just very confusing, and it's like, it's not an instant, it was just a dream. It's really kind of this process of like waking up, I guess. It's like it takes.
It's like you get stuck
it.
or something somewhere in the middle of the process, and you're not quite there or something. Like you're in that in between sleep and awake place, but you never get any farther. You don't keep
right. It's like how you feel. You feel panicked or whatever. But you start losing the target. It's like you don't understand what made you feel that way, but you still feel it intensely. So it's like having that fight or flight reflex. It's like you're ready to. I guess it's adrenaline, right? I mean, but you're ready to act. You're ready to do something. Yep. But then you realize I've been sleeping and there's nothing I need to do, and it's like it's hard to let that go.
Right.
But it's so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's weird. I don't. It's like. But it does kind of sound like you're getting stuck in between that spot. That's. I wonder if waking you up would actually cause more harm than good, though, because it's like if you're. I'm just kind of gaming this out. If lightly slapping you on the face isn't enough to actually wake,
do it harder.
No, I'm just saying there's a chance that maybe makes you mad. Right. And now maybe you do something much, you know what I'm saying? That's why I'm kind of worried about this whole waking. That's why I asked the question. I'm kind of worried about this whole way, I don't think you would do anything completely out of character, but I also don't think defending yourself is completely out of character. You know what I'm saying? So
Yes. And I don't know.
So yeah, I mean, what I was just thinking was that, like, if you're in this situation where you think the assassin's coming to kill you, and maybe you decide to go out the front door instead of going out the back door, because maybe you don't have a back door. I don't know. So maybe you decide to go out the front door and you walk through your living room and your roommate's there, and your roommate's like, "Hey, dude, what the fuck?" and like shakes you or whatever to try to wake you up.
Just tries to stop me from leaving.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Then you might mistake him for the assassin.
Right, and try to defend myself because I think he's here to kill me.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you end up killing your roommate or whatever. A bit of just being in a very dangerous situation. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah. No. That's fair. And I don't know. So like, there have been times when I'm not saying that the person was trying to wake me up exactly, but they were trying to get me to go back to bed or see reason, like we were talking about earlier with the night terrors or whatever.
Right.
And I would feel like they didn't understand me. They didn't understand what was going on, right? Like, you're not paying attention to me. And I would get angry or agitated. And it takes a while. Like, eventually I would get to a point where I was like, fine, I'll get back in bed. But it was almost like, belligerently doing it. You know what I mean? because I would just be like, well, fine, if you don't believe me,
right.
like that. But it's like I'd start to get that little kernel of, okay, something's not right here or whatever. But I legitimately be getting angry. And sometimes I would say things. I know I would, because I'd slightly remember them. And remember being angry. And then like feel really bad about it the next day, because I'm like, obviously I was an idiot, or not an idiot. I believed what was happening,
sure.
but and you feel like the people around you are acting out of character, right? Rather than it being you,
right?
It's like you feel like there's this really dangerous or whatever situation that's happening. And like, why won't you believe me? Why won't you do the thing that needs to be done? So it does result, I think, in some agitation sometimes, but I'm not sure if it would go as far as me actually, like injuring somebody. I hope not, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So there's this comedian, Mike Birbiglia. I don't know if I think you've.
Yeah, I've listened to his podcast a couple times. And I've seen some of his stand up. Yeah,
so he had this this special that he did. It was called Sleepwalk with Me, and he talks a lot about him sleepwalking. And it's so I talked about me, worrying that I was going to jump off of my balcony. Well, he actually did something that he talks about in that special, but it's real. That's kind of messed up, but he was like I said, he's a comedian. He was on tour in Walla Walla, Washington. I just like saying that. And he was staying at a La Quinta. And I don't remember what floor he was on, but it was a higher floor in the hotel. And he was having this dream that he thought that a military helicopter was coming to that hotel and was going to fire missiles at the hotel and blow it up. And he panicked.
Man, the military must really not like his comedy.
And he panicked and he busted out the window of his hotel room and then jumped out of it into the parking lot of the hotel. And he ended up getting like 33, he had 33 stitches. Or he had to go to the ER. He had to get 33 stitches in his leg. I don't know if he cut it on the window as he jumped out, or if it was like landing on, in the parking lot or whatever. But he was talking about that. And like, you asked me earlier about whether I ever get frightened of, or whether when I was a teenager, did it frighten me that those things happen? And it didn't at the time, like I said. And then I had that instance with the balcony at that condo, and I did get a little frightened about it after that. And my worry has always been kind of like what Mike Birbiglia was talking about, that you're going to do something that's actually going to hurt yourself.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was the closest I ever got to that. And so it was 2001 when I had that incident or near incident in that condo. And just like, I don't know, 18 months later or so, I had to travel for work. In fact, I traveled 2 months in a row, and excuse me. And when I went there, like I had this, I was thinking about, and not this was pre Mike Birbiglia stand up, although I resonate with it. Mm-hmm. But I had this fear of the thing that had happened, on potentially with my balcony, jumping off of it. And here I am traveling for work and staying in a hotel room, and I had some fear around what might I do, mm-hmm. Like there is the fear of, you walk out the door and, sleepwalk out the door and, you don't have your key. And just like I ended up, in my underwear on the porch when I was a teenager, I don't want to end up somewhere in the hotel in whatever I was sleeping in or not, or whatever. Yep. That would be awful. When I traveled, I was on the first floor, but I had enough of a fear then that I'd actually move a piece of furniture, like a chair or, like one of the big, like reclining chairs or whatever, I'd push it in front of the door so that it would make it a lot harder for me to walk out. I mean, I don't do that anymore, but I was fearful enough then that I felt like I needed to take precautions. And I've traveled a lot for work and other things since then, and I don't really feel that way anymore. But like I said, I mean, it still happens, even in the last 2 years, I can count a couple of times when I have, slept walk, slept talk, but it all comes down to whether I'm actually getting out of bed or not. It all comes down to interacting with the real world and thinking I'm still dreaming.
I just thought about this. This might be $1 million idea for somebody. If it's not, it should, it should be out there anyway, honestly, but it seems like it'd be super easy today to put just a simple device or maybe even just make an app for the Apple Watch that just tracks your movements. And if it's the middle of the night and you get out of bed and you get up and get out of bed, that should be enough to cause this thing to vibrate or something on your wrist hard enough to try to wake you up, right? If you're already awake, you just tap the thing and you go on about your business, right? Yeah. But if you're not already awake, right, maybe it's enough to wake you up or starts playing a note that just keeps getting louder, until it wakes you up.
Maybe. I mean, just like we were talking about, sometimes when you're in that in-between space, though, like you start incorporating the real world stuff into your dream. Yeah. Like I know several times, because
I don't know, maybe even say something like, you're sleepwalking, wake up. You're sleepwalking, wake up. Yeah, just maybe. Over and over and over again,
Maybe. So I used to sleep with with an alarm, but it was a clock radio, right? So I would wake up to whatever was on that radio station in the morning. And I just remember there being, some morning show that was, the same people every morning, and you'd hear them bantering back and forth. Mm-hmm. And it almost never would wake me up. Like I would sleep with that going on in the background. And, I would have to have the person, my wife at the time would be the one that would actually wake me up. But I would wake up and realize that I was dreaming and incorporating the stuff that I was hearing from the clock radio into those dreams. Right. The things they were saying were somehow entering what I was dreaming but I was imagining it in a different way. So if there's something that's like vibrating on my wrist, I could imagine how that could easily be incorporated.
It's got to be something, though. It seems like there should be some way to say, maybe it's say, your full name, you're sleepwalking, wake up. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's got to be something that's going to jar you the hell out of it, or just maybe it keeps giving you more information or something, I don't know, but it seems like we're at a place where we should be able to technologically figure out that a person is sleepwalking and then figure out how to wake them up. It just seems weird to me that we don't have a solution for this yet.
Or maybe there are. I mean, I really haven't done, I did a lot of research on sleep, but I don't know that I don't think I've ever researched any devices or apps to detect or prevent sleepwalking. Yeah. I wanted to know more about why I was doing it, like what's going on in my brain or whatever, but not really external factors to stop or prevent.
Hey, maybe I'll fire up Xcode and try to vibe code this shit at some point,
There you go. We'll just vibe code
I'll vibe code it and put it on your watch.
Right. can't. I mean,
Instead of preventing you from sleepwalking, you'll wake up and find out it bought a Porsche overnight.
well, no, that's what I was going to say. For some reason, I ended up transferring all my money to Brian. I don't know what happened, but I did it in my sleep. I don't know what happened. It's weird.
Mike, your sleepwalking is getting out of hand, bro.
Thank you for listening to the F'ing Up the Ineffable podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with your friends. If you didn't, well, thanks for sticking around this long anyway. We are available on most major podcast platforms, including Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more. We are currently releasing new episodes every 3 weeks on Thursdays, but hope to increase the frequency of releases in the near future. Please subscribe to us on your favorite platform to be informed when new episodes release. And also, we love feedback. Feel free to find and follow us on X, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, or Facebook and let us know what you think. You can also email us at effinguptheineffable@gmail.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.